I get those goosebumps every time.
I just have to get the big fella off the bench.
Could this be their last chance now? In it comes, Monster to the front! He scored! Harry Monster scored!
I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too numb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hind to throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying. I'm sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and high. I get those goosebumps every time. I'm around, yeah. You ease my mind. You make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hind.
Here we go. We are back again. We're all excited about this one tonight. But welcome all to Low Mag NUFC full loaded transfer show on a Sunday night special. Welcome to you all. We're back to talk all things Newcastle United, and yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one, I'm not going to lie. But, boys, first of all, how are you? How's your weekend's been? How are things?
Well, for me, I'm just delighted I'm being able to join the start of the show because right outside my window, there's 71 kilometers per hour winds with the storm blowing and in the eye of the storm at the moment. And it starts to reach its peak at 8 o'clock. So if my internet goes down or if my power goes, you know what happened. But apart from that, I'm good.
Just great to have you here, being able to see you. If we see the old,
you know,
we know. But Chris, how are you, fella? How's things?
I'm all right, mate. I've just been laughing then because as the intro was on, Lisa said to me, "Are you listening to music?" And I was like, "It's the intro." So that's why I was laughing. I was like, "Yeah, it's the intro to the show." Yeah.
It's like, come on, Lisa. You know the score.
Do you know what, Pete? I don't know about you, but I feel really nervous about tonight because Tass has gone already. And when yous are talking, there's like a little stutter. And I'm like, oh no, is it me? Is it yous? I don't even know.
Well, we'll just put it out there that if you see us kind of jittering all over the place, you know what the reason is. And yeah, I think Naz is already frozen as well. Hey, oh God. This is someone in the chat put on a little tally chart for every time we stutter, and let's mark us off. But look, regardless of the crazy winds, the bad weather in this country and beyond, we will still bring a show to you all. And look, there's 80 plus streaming into the chat. Hope you're all well. Lots of people in there. Get your questions in. We've already got 5-6 really good questions, guys, and we're going to get to them tonight. So feel free to put your questions in about all this madness that has been going on at this moment in time with all things Newcastle United. And look, let's get into it in just a second. What I will do is just give a shout out to Steve Wilkinson, who unfortunately passed away over the course of the weekend. Someone that we knew well, obviously on our days with NUFC Matters, always in the chat, followed on socials and supported not only when we were on the previous channel, but since we've been on Loaded Mag NUFC. So obviously our best wishes, love, goes out to Steve and his family and his close ones. One and a part of the Newcastle United family. And so we share our sort of like thoughts with them over the course of this weekend and beyond. And I'm sure he'll be remembered the next time we play, whether it's at Fulham away or whether it's at home to Luton. We'll definitely pay our respects in some way, shape, or form. So, Steve, you're a good person, and best wishes to you and your family. Right. Let's get down to it, fella. It's been a mad 48 hours. What I tried to do, and I kind of talked to Daz briefly about this before you came on, Chris, is that I want to try and kind of paint a little bit of a picture of the story of this madness. We know on Friday the initial kind of links started to kick in, but I wanted to kind of just paint a little bit of a picture there. And look, it all kind of really started to kind of kick off in progressive talks and a little bit more sort of information with regards to this. He's back. Don't worry.
Craig Hope did that to me. He's a finger in everything, Craig Hope.
Quite possibly. He controls the Wi-Fi of these shores, so he decides what goes out and what doesn't. But I'm just saying, Daz, we're going to just do a little bit of a talk through of all the madness, and then what I want to do is get your opinions on this. Some of you who maybe not on socials may have not seen the sort of interactions and the chopping and changing of this. All a little bit crazy. So certainly on a Saturday, first thing we knew was Dominic Skur, friend of the channel, said there were sort of talks regarding a loan deal for Kieran Trippier, which then kind of escalated into Fabrizio Romano saying that Bayern had approached. And I think at that point, boys, we knew that it was serious because we know who Fabio Romano is. We know his track record of knowing deals, and we thought, oh, okay, that could be quite a serious one. There are other reports, things like, and we can get back into this conversation later on in the show, things like, there could well be a swap deal on the cards with one or two Bayern players linked with that. And at this point there, it kind of moved forward pretty quickly, even to the point where pictures like these were starting to get put around like it was a done deal, like he was already agreeing to go. And Luke Edwards puts an interesting point on there. When everyone's sort of concerned about him leaving, there were kind of murmurs that actually, is it the worst deal in the world? But this is where it kicks in. Craig Hope starts to kind of ramp up the Trippier to Bayern Munich with the fact that he returned from New York in a bid to seal a move to Bayern Munich. From that point, Simon Bird, there's another friend of the channel, talks about him ready to quit. At this point, we all thought that it was done, that he was ready to go. And a few of us, certainly a few of you in the chat, were thinking about, what comes next? Show me the money. I think one of us said quite rightly, and thinking ahead to our next moves. But then it moved really, really quickly, boys. At that point, Bayern Munich have made an approach for Kieran Trippier, but Pete Graves understood that Trippier wasn't for sale by Newcastle, and absolutely no interest in losing him, which then sparked in the Craig Hope change of opinion that the bid had been rejected. And at that point, 100% Mags, who is a friend of the channel, put out something on socials about the contrast of opinions with regards to Pete Graves and Craig Hope over a short period of time. At one point, he was coming back to seal his move to Bayern Munich. Pete Graves was adamant that he was staying. And these tweets weren't far apart in terms of how quickly they were sent in between. So I think it confused the fan base quite a bit. And then we get into today where it says that Newcastle United are standing firm on Kieran Trippier. And that was Craig Hope again saying that it's not happening and that he's going nowhere. But what's really interesting this evening is that there has been some additional movement as well. And Florian Plettenberg, reporter for Sky Sports Germany, said that the deal's not done in terms of it's not guaranteed he's going to stay. There are still talks progressing with regards to Bayern Munich. And as he refers to, poker with Newcastle United has started. And yet we'll definitely get into that. And of course, Christian Folk, who has put a number of other tweets out, has put an interesting tweet out just recently. That Newcastle are actually looking at around 15 million euros for Kieran Trippier if they're willing to sell him. They're looking at all of these different options. Bayern Munich are in trying to get him loans and cheaper deals, but apparently Newcastle kind of set the stall out in terms of what they want. But look, I just want to stop on there just for a second with regards to Trippier. So I want to get your thoughts on this, boys. What do you make of all of that transpiring sort of over the last, in particular, 24 hours or so? Because it has been a bit of a whirlwind and something we didn't expect. So Chris, I'll start with you. What do you make of it all?
I don't even know where to start myself with it, to be honest, Pete, because the difficulty is for me, like, nobody's right and nobody's wrong, because at the end of the day, no one really knows what's truly going on. Now, you can look at both sides of the coin. The thing for me is that I think a lot of the fan base, or certainly fans that I've seen on social media, like, I think they're blowing this way out of proportion, and I think that they're being clouded because of who it is. And the player we're talking about, so I think that they're not really seeing things for how they are. Like, we've been linked in the past few weeks and months with having to sell the likes of Joe Linton, the likes of Bruno, players like that who we really don't want to lose. And with Kieran Trippier, he's been a fantastic servant since he's come in. Probably, and I said this the other day in my tweet, probably the best right back I've seen play for Newcastle. And he's a great player, and I'm not denying he's a great player. But at the end of the day, and people have got to realise, money talks. Now, when we've had this bid for Trippier, if it's a loan deal, and I can see why the club have rejected that, because a loan deal wouldn't make much sense to me. Yes, it gets the wages off the wage bill, but a loan deal for me, for Newcastle, doesn't make sense, because ultimately the main aim for Newcastle United at the moment is to try and get players off the wage bill out of the squad, but to bring money into the club. Now, the fact that we've heard about this interest from Bayern Munich, some people are saying, oh, Trippier, he's walking out on us. He wouldn't be a legend because he's walking out on us. At the end of the day, you've got to see it from his point of view. Like, I'm sure he's very happy here. And I think if he stays here, he will be continually committed to the cause. I think he's a model pro. I don't expect him to down tools or, have a tit lip on because we wouldn't let him leave. But ultimately, if a club like Bayern Munich comes in for you and your mates, Harry Kane and Eric Dyer, are there already, they've got a fantastic chance of winning the Bundesliga. I don't see how you can kind of blame him for possibly having his head turned or be interested. And equally, I don't think you can blame Newcastle for entertaining the option of selling him when there's a possibility of us getting our money back for the 33-year-old who we've already replaced. We've got Tino Livramento there. Tino Livramento really should be in the starting 11 for Newcastle. We've all said this. Like, Tino Livramento has probably been our best defender for the last few weeks and months. Every time he's played, he's looked consistently good, maybe by the odd appearance. But he is the future of Newcastle United, Tino Livramento, and we've already signed a replacement. Now, if it meant to me, Pete, that we were to sell Kieran Trippier for upwards of £10 million, I think it's good business by Newcastle. And if it stops us having to sell a player that maybe we don't want to lose, who's maybe younger and could spend the next 2 or 3 years at Newcastle, I'm all for it. And this is the thing that I'm struggling with. And yes, journalists are hearing different things and they're putting out their own stories, and we'll get into why that is, and we'll get into why Newcastle are acting the way that they are. We can get into that a bit later on. But in terms of Kieran Trippier himself, I think it would be fantastic business to sell Kieran Trippier and get upwards of 10 million for him. Because yes, people will say, oh, he's our best defender and he's a leader, and I get all that. But in 12, 18 months' time, Kieran Trippier will need to be replaced because he'll be 35 years old, and Tino Livramento will be knocking at the door going, am I going to play at any point? And Tino Livramento should be playing because, like I say, he's playing really, really well. He's a fantastic prospect, and we've got to look to the future. And if it means, if we were to sell Kieran Trippier for, say, 10, 12, 15 million, whatever it is, that could open the door for a 40, 50 million pound player who we desperately need in central midfield or right wing or forward. That's what we need. And yes, in an ideal world, if we had all the money in the world, which we do, and we could spend all the money in the world, we wouldn't entertain selling Kieran Trippier, but that's not where we are. That's not the position that we're in. If we could spend as much as we wanted, Kieran Trippier wouldn't be sold. But unfortunately, we can't spend as much as we wanted. So we have to navigate around this. We have to find a way. We have to manipulate the rules and find a way of being able to, move forward as a club and build as a club. So I think it was Daz who said it in his tweet on Loaded, when he said, "Is this phase 2?" And I think it could be phase 2. There's players will need to be sacrificed in order for us to move on, and there'll be other players, and I won't mention them because I don't want to spoil it, Pete. But there'll be other players that we're having the same conversation about, not just Kieran Trippier. So for me, I think to answer your question, I don't want to lose Kieran Trippier. I really like Kieran Trippier, and like I say, he's probably the best right back I've seen at the club. But when you look at it financially, from a financial point of view, it makes perfect sense, and I can see why the club are looking to move him on, and why Kieran Trippier himself is looking at moving on, because when Bayern Munich come calling, you have to take interest. You have to. Anybody would. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, whoever you want to say, those massive, huge clubs, you've got to take interest in it. Of course you have. So I wonder why there's such a big furore around Kieran Trippier, being honest, because I totally get it. And, as sad as it is, I think it makes financial sense for the club and probably for the player.
No, lots of really good points there, Chris, for sure. And Chris, sorry, Daz, and to get your opinions on this really quickly as well. But just very quickly, super chat in. Carlisle Tuna, brilliant channel, love the content, and I'm a regular listener. Just wanted to say thanks for all the work you do. Thank you very much for your £10 donation. Really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, for everyone in the chat, click the likes and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 7K, so come and help us along the way. And thank you for your support with that. Chris made some really good points, Daz, with regards to Kieran Trippier and kind of looking at that perspective of why it would make sense to make that move and to take a deal from Bayern Munich. Are you of the sort of same mindset, or are you someone that feels that he needs to stay? Where do you kind of sit in all of this, having kind of relived all of those tweets that we've just gone through for the last 24 hours or so, mate?
Relived is right. Chris always makes great points. First of all, but I do agree with him. I hope you've given people a target though, Chris, because 250 likes was too easy last time.
We haven't.
300. I think
we haven't.
300 is the target for this week. But anyway, you know what to do. Smash that like button. But how it all unfolded was absolutely crazy yesterday. A small bit more today, but mainly yesterday. And linking back, and a few people have said it in the chat as well. It all kind of emanated from the Darren Eads. Come and get me. Come make offers. We're open for business, and that's not a bad thing, because it alerted clubs to test the market with Newcastle, and they were looking for that really as well. Yeah. So that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing clubs, and there'll be more of it, I think, between now and different players, even than we have in the poster behind us, or the like the Miggy maybe, or someone like that as well may come into to question. Who knows? But yeah, in terms of Kieran Trippier, I'm aligning with what Chris is saying there. I don't want to see him go. In an ideal world, yes, I would love him to stay and to finish his career at Newcastle. But if it's a case that he would like the opportunity to go to Bayern, and we can recoup some cash to either put towards January, you would hope, or into the kitty for the summer to boost us up again, so be it, But no, I don't want to see him go. But the other thing is, like Chris has said, we have Tino, and Tino deserves to be our starter there now. Never mind a kind of bit time player. He's good enough to be on the team sheet from the start in games. And I think into next year, Trippier would be kind of sharing that role with the Tino. So it's come the summer, I think there'd have to be kind of a decisions made no matter what. So let's see how it all plays out. It is kind of interesting. It's chopped and changed a few times, and it'll chop and change a few more times, I think, between now and deadline day. But as long as we can get to consider investment of our own in January, then come what may, we'll see what happens.
You boys just want to see new signings through the door, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we all do. That's why people are watching this show.
But no, I'm inclined to agree. You boys know sort of my thoughts on it. What I'm going to say, from my perspective, is well played, the Newcastle United owners. I've maintained this for a while. I tweeted out just after Darren Eales' interview, and I said we have extremely smart owners. And for those on social media that have questioned the ownership and said, what are they doing? Why was that interview played? Blah, 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 blah. I thought it was a stroke of genius. And not for the reasons why that was plastered all over social media. So we heard after that interview with Darren Eales that Isaac was going, that Bruno was going, that Botman was going, that we need to sell our best players. That wasn't the intention of our owners, in my opinion, not at all. Their intention was to drum up interest. And it's exactly what you boys have said, is that we have drummed up interest. We've drummed up interest in players that Newcastle United are comfortable to let go. Kieran Trippier is the one we're talking about now, but there'll be a couple of others, 3 in fact, that we'll probably focus on over the course of the show, that Newcastle United are more than happy to let go. And we've talked about it before. Chris has mentioned it. Daz, you've just mentioned it a second ago. There are players here that will not be here long term. And as a Newcastle United fan base, we have to become comfortable with that. Players that we like will leave. We said it, boys, last summer, didn't we? In the full loaded transfer show, in the summer window, we are going to be saying goodbye to players that we don't necessarily want to let go. But it's the reality of where we're at as a football club. Man City lost Raheem Sterling, who was a brilliant player for them, had to let him go. Gabriel Jesus reluctantly had to let him go. That's Man City. That's a club that recoups £700 million a year. Like they can afford to keep those players, but they have to let certain players go to keep the club ticking over. We have to do the same, and it will build, and we will continue to lose those players. I thought it was an absolute stroke of genius by the club, and it's exactly the move that they needed to make. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit torn with Kieran Trippier. Not torn for long term. I saw him being here another year max after this season. Another year max. I didn't see him being here after the age of 34. Personally, and he's going to be 34 this year. So him coming up was a bit of a shock, but it wasn't the worst shock in the world from the fact that he might leave. What was a shock is how influential he is to this team currently. He is massive to this team. He is the captain, effectively. Aside from Lascelles, he's the captain. He's the leader. He drives us forward on the pitch. And my initial reaction, you boys and people would have seen on socials, my initial reaction is he has to stay. He has to stay because he's so important to us. But when you start thinking about it and you're thinking why this move might be coming about, you've got to look at it from both sides of the coin. Newcastle United, as you said, Chris, quite rightly, we got 15 million euros for him, 12 million pound. It's effectively the money that we spent for him. So we haven't lost. We get the money back that we spent for him. We spent 12.5 million on him. We effectively get that back. But it's what that 12 million can allow us to do in this window. This window where we have no Joe Linton, where we have no Willock at this moment in time and haven't had him all season. No guarantees Barnes is going to come back fit and firing straight away. He could take weeks to get up to speed because he's barely kicked a ball. And we're in that position where we're losing players and we're not where we need to be. And that was the other thought in my head. And I thought, if we can go and strengthen with some first team ready players, it could make for a really good window. And that was kind of my initial thoughts. And I'm not going to lie, it's a tug of war with me because sometimes I think, no, we need to keep him. Well, we can't let him go. He's massive to us. And you look at it and you think, we've got 4 right backs. Well, 3 now. But we've got enough cover there. Can we get through to the end of the season? You said it, Chris. Tino Livramento, one of the best performing young right backs in the Premier League.
Yep.
I'm confident he could step up to number one, 100%. So then you think about it, you think, is it the worst deal in the world? And then you think for Kieran Trippier's point of view, best mates with Harry Kane and Eric Dyer. His wife, his family know their families very, very close. It would be seamless in that transition. He's got an opportunity of winning the Bundesliga, winning trophies before he retires. He's got an opportunity to not play Champions League football this season because he's cup tied, but next season, potentially, and they'll always get to the last stages. So you wait up and you think, is it the worst deal in the world? Who knows? So I'm kind of in the middle. If he stays, look, I'm buzzing because we know what he gives.
Yeah.
If he goes, is it the worst thing in the world? It'll be gutting to see him leave. Like you said, Chris, best right back we've ever seen in this club. But equally, I just think the money that we can get and reinvest would be good. It has to be done soon, though, boys. In my opinion, we need time to get players in. We can't be waiting Thursday, Friday of the next week coming, and this deal still hasn't been done. If it's not done by Thursday, Friday, it doesn't get done. We need him for Fulham. We need players in ASAP. We don't want to be scrambling last minute. So that's kind of me from that perspective.
Pete, just to sorry, Daz, I was just going to say, look at Alan Thompson's OTA. Really good point.
Exactly.
Yeah. The answer's no.
But boys, this is, and Alan, particularly to you, because you put the comment in the chat, this is why the Darren Eales movement was a stroke of genius.
Yes, exactly.
Where are you going to get huge fees for Callum Wilson in the summer with a year left on his contract? Where are you going to get huge fees for a near 34-year-old Kieran Trippier in the summer? Where are you going to get huge fees for some of the others that we're going to talk about later on in the show? You're not. January is the perfect window because teams like Bayern Munich, who haven't even got a right back at the moment, they're playing them centre midfielder right back to fill that position. They're desperate. And when people are desperate, they'll pay more money to get players. And we can maximize this month certain players to get as much money out of them as possible, because in the summer, we might not recoup the same. Or effectively, we'll be begging Saudi to take them because they might inflate the fees. That'll be the only way.
Just one comment, because I said something. I think it was even before. It could have been even before the start. I'm not sure it was even before the interview with Darren Eales, but that because I was looking back at the entertainers, the half-hour Sky show that I was looking with my little boy over Christmas, and I was thinking at that time the whole Keegan moment on the steps about the Andy Cole explaining to the fans, and I think I said at the time something like that is going to happen sometime. But anyway, let's play it on a bit. What I want the devil's advocate question here. What if we do sell one or two players? Yeah, one of yours, Chris, and we don't bring anyone in January, and we keep we save on wages. Now we are weakening our squad, and we're reducing our chances of getting into Europe then, which we want. But are we going to be very pissed off? Because I think the fan base definitely is going to be pissed off then. But
it's a great question, Daz. It's a great question. And you know what? I was literally just about to put in our private chat. I've got a question. And to be fair, I was going to ask that very question because you're spot on what you're saying. If the question is, and I know we can talk about the other player we're going to speak about in a minute, and you can kind of refer to that in the same vein. But as Daz rightly says, if it meant we kept hold of Kieran Trippier and other players who maybe we don't want to lose, but then you said to the fan base we won't be bringing anyone in January, or do you let them go and you bring in 2 or 3 new players who are going to improve us and who are going to be better going into the next season, having played 6 months at the club and settled, etc. What would you do? So that is that effectively what you're asking, Daz?
Yeah, well, like we know it's not a case in like the Andy Carroll, Mike Ashley scenario where he held on to the cash. If we don't spend it in January, we're definitely going to be spending it in the summer. And whatever happens, there's going to be a bumper summer coming with a lot of chopping and changing in the squad, and it's been well overdue. But just if we were to sell 1 or 2, even 1, and not replace them, not bring in another player, another body, I think there'll be a bit of discontent. What do you think?
I think there would. I think there would be discontent if we didn't bring in anybody. Do you mean in terms of, if we sold Trippier, for example, and didn't bring anybody in, like, would there be a negative reaction to that? Of course. Like, we'll just talk about it on here. Like, the excitement that we get when we think about players coming in. Like, how many windows have we done now on this channel? And we get excited about the fact that we want players coming in. This is why we love talking about it. This is why so many people are in the chat, because they want to talk about players potentially coming through the door. It's what makes us tick as football fans, seeing those new players and the excitement that it brings. So if you're going to let someone like him go, you have to replace him. You have to. Otherwise, you don't let someone like him go. It doesn't matter as much as money you get from him. You've got to replace in some way, shape, or form. I've said it for a while, and to be fair, we've all said it. Like, we're not talking about permanent signings here. We're not talking about going out and spending 30, 40, 50 million pounds on a player or two. Like, we're not saying anything like that. We're just happy with loan players that aren't maybe playing fully at their other clubs, hungry players that are wanting to come to us and make a difference. That's what we want, because we need bodies. We need players that are capable of playing at this level to come and help us. And I think that's the absolute minimum that we should be having, is getting at least one or two players in, regardless of whether Trippier goes, in my opinion. But if he does go, it makes it a necessity to get those players in, to get that done. But that's me. Others in the chat might have a different perspective on that.
The other thing, sorry, Chris. Go on, you go first, Chris.
I was going to say, the only caveat to what you've said, Daz, is I'd be really disappointed and annoyed and frustrated if we sold the likes of Trippier and didn't bring a replacement in. But the difference is between this ownership and the last ownership, as you rightly pointed out, Daz, I would just think, okay, it's going to be a big one in the summer. It's not going to be a case of, we've sold them and that money's been pocketed and we're never going to see it again. We know these owners want to invest. We know that. We'd all be disappointed and frustrated and angry and say that it's the wrong decision. I'm sure we'd all say that. But we'd know that, okay, this summer's going to be pretty big then. It's not going to be a case of, we've sold our best right back. Yeah, exactly. So it's not... as much as I think it would probably be a mistake to sell someone like Trippier and not replace a body in the squad this window, I wouldn't be thinking, bloody hell, that's that money down the drain, because we used to all say, didn't we? There's Mike pocketing the money. Great, we're not in that position anymore.
Not Mike Gent.
No, not Mike Gent. Not Mike Gent.
Is he?
Yeah,
he'll take his cut though. The other thing I was going to say is just, and I think we probably touched on it, but that we would really miss with Trippier is leadership, and all the crossing as well, and set pieces. But his leadership, because look, we'll be talking about a few more as well. Maybe we'll move on because we might be losing another leader as well.
Yeah. Well, it then quickly spun into overdrive after that, because not only were there links to Kieran Trippier, this man was front and center in the news as well. But this time it had already been put in place that the bid had been rejected. So again, Craig Hope came out with an exclusive that Newcastle rejecting a loan approach for Atletico Madrid. But also says that Newcastle would be willing to consider a permanent move if they came back with the money on board. I think it's rumoured to be just a loan move without even a fee involved in that as well. There were other reports from the Chronicle saying that Newcastle are braced for another approach from Atletico Madrid for Callum Wilson at that point. There are still rumours that he could be interesting other clubs as well. And the reason being is because not long after that, certainly today, Fab Romano does kind of throw a slight spanner in the works with that Callum Wilson link, in that Atletico Madrid are potentially quite close to getting Moise Kean from Juventus on loan. Apparently he's agreed his loan move to Atletico Madrid. I just think they have to sort of agree it from club to club. And looking like that is the one that's potentially going to get done out of it all. But it has been mentioned that Callum Wilson is attracting interest, not just from Atletico Madrid, but other European teams, as well as teams in the Premier League as well, although those teams are not sort of suggested on that. So again, I asked the same question, boys. What do you make of that? Because they were two very kind of quick turnarounds, Kieran Trippier and then Callum Wilson. The question I've got for you, boys, and Daz, I'll start with you on this one, is that were you of the same mindset with Callum Wilson as you were with Kieran Trippier about the potential of them leaving? And were you happy to see that link, or would you have preferred him to stay at that point of when you found out?
Different reasons here, okay? With Kieran Trippier, he's a right back. We have a right back replacing people that can slot in, not do as good a job, well, apart from Tino, but not have the leadership qualities and the crossing and set pieces, blah, blah, blah. Wilson, on the other hand, he is so injury prone. We've been talking about it for years, but we have no other backup striker to Isak. We can't even. It's only been the odd time that Ben Parkinson has been on the bench as our replacement striker and doesn't even get on then either. When Isak is on his legs, but yeah, I would not a loan offer. No, I want to show me the money, the cash for Wilson. Put in an offer. Come and make me an offer. And I suppose this Atletico Madrid loan interest has probably made it known to other clubs as well. Hey, maybe we could try and pick him up here, and maybe throw in a bit. Like we paid 20 million for Wilson. I don't know what we get for him now, but I would sell if we got a decent enough offer for him. But we need, in this case for Wilson, we do need to bring in a back, whether it be on loan or apparently we need someone else. Isak can't get through the remainder of the season just on his own, and then we have no one apart from Gordon maybe filling up front, and that doesn't really work either. All in all, if the money was right, I would sell both of them. Okay. But I would like us to invest in January, at least on one player, if not two, but or bring in someone on loan to get us through the summer and then go crazy then. But yeah, leaving on loan and it doesn't make any sense. It's a non-starter really for Callum Wilson.
Chris, I'll ask you the exact same question because I want to know your thoughts, just like Daz's. Are you with the same mindset, Trippier, mirror imaging Wilson when you heard that deal come through or potential deal?
I think Daz is at the nail on the head. I think they're very similar but different. Again, it goes back to what you said, Pete, about the whole masterstroke from Darren Eales. We're seemingly, again, we're not 100% sure this is concrete, but it certainly looks it. We're getting offers for players that maybe other clubs didn't think were available. But it's now, we're posing questions. We're kind of saying, listen, if you're interested in the player, come and bid. Doesn't mean we've got to accept them. Doesn't mean that we're unsettling the players because we're not saying to the players we want you to leave. But if an acceptable bid comes in and we accept the offer, then obviously the player's got a decision to make. But for me, Callum Wilson, let's get it right. Callum Wilson's a top striker. On his day, Callum Wilson is a top striker. And I still have discussions with my mates who all tell me that Callum Wilson's better than Alexander Isak. They from their point of view, they're Reds and Blues. They all tell me that Callum Wilson's better than Alexander Isak. And I think Callum Wilson on his day is absolutely brilliant. But the trouble is, we don't see enough of those days because he's always injured. And I believe that Callum Wilson's coming towards the end of his Newcastle career. People may not like that. People may disagree with that. But we need players who are fit and available and who are reliable. And unfortunately, as Callum Wilson's getting older, he's not as readily fit and available as we'd want him to be. And I think if we ended up bringing in another striker and Callum Wilson was third choice, he wouldn't want that and he wouldn't accept it. And I get it because, he's a good professional. He wants to play football and he won't want to see out the remaining years of his career on the bench. So he probably will want to go and play football. In terms of the Atletico Madrid's loan, Daz is right. I think we couldn't accept the loan deal. We'd want the cash or at least with an obligation at the bare minimum. But then it puts pressure on the ownership because unlike Trippier, we need a replacement. We need to bring someone in who maybe Sesko, as Jimmy says, we need to bring someone in who is going to be able to replace Callum Wilson's spot in the team, because we can't just go for the rest of the season with Alexander Isak. We just can't do it. And some people will say, yeah, we've got Anthony Gordon, you can play there, blah, blah, blah. But you need a recognised striker. You need someone who's going to relieve Alexander Isak, or, give us the opportunity to rest them. If we've got like say we've got like a Luton at home or a Wolves at home or someone like that, and we go, do you know what? Give Alexander Isak the rest. Let's save him for the next game. Let's put the second striker in, who you'd want to be Callum Wilson. We saw it in the Champions League in the earlier games in the season. We saw Callum Wilson was playing in the Premier League, Alexander Isak was playing in the Champions League, and then obviously that fell apart because they got injured and then we had no choice. But I think if the money's good enough, we'd have to look at it. We'd have to look at the deal for Callum Wilson. But again, it all depends on if the offer's there, if the money's on the table. Do I want to see him go? Not really. But I do think that going forwards, we're going to have to start looking at replacing him. And the longer his contract winds down, the less money we're going to get for him. Again, if somebody came in with a reasonable offer, I mean, you boys tell me what you think's a reasonable offer, but if someone came in with a reasonable offer and put money on the table, do Newcastle then look at it and go, well, you know what, we were going to replace him in 12, 18 months anyway. Fast forward that, bring someone in now, younger, fitter, I can see why Newcastle are looking at entertaining offers for Callum Wilson. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I can see why they may be tempted, because, as I said before, I think Callum Wilson is probably coming towards the end of his career at Newcastle.
Yep. That statement you just put at the end is exactly true in my eyes. I don't see Callum Wilson staying beyond this season. And I've been convinced of that for a while. I think his latest injury troubles have condemned him to being sold at some point. I'm slightly different, boys. I was not happy, but I was okay with it when this link came about. I was quite happy to, not happy. He's a great player, and I really like him as a striker. But I was content to see him move on. From that point of view, it wasn't the worst news in the world for me. Trippier being so influential was, but for Callum Wilson, we need him to stay fit, and we need him to stay fit for two reasons: for himself, because as you boys have mentioned, he is a good goal scorer, a very good goal scorer. Yeah. But equally, we need Callum Wilson fit for Alexander Isak. They come as a pair.
Yeah.
And they bounce off each other. They both need to stay fit for each other's benefit. And we cannot afford to have Alexander Isak get another injury off the back of the fact that Callum Wilson isn't fit and can't replace him and give him that breather. Alexander Isak is the future. There's no doubt about that. He is a top talent, very close to being on the verge of world class, in my opinion. And he's only 24. He's going to get better. And we need to protect him. And what you protect him by having a bloody good number two. And Callum Wilson is a bloody good number two. He's a quality number two. But he isn't a quality number two if he's not fit. So when this deal came about, or this supposed deal came about, for me, I was like, you know what? I'll take that, providing that we go and get a striker. And my first name off the back of my head was Siriu Garassi. 15 million is his release clause. Go get it done. Whatever the fee is for Callum Wilson, you then can afford to sign him. Go get it done. He's got 19, 20 Bundesliga goals this season. He's the only one that's coming close to Harry Kane. He's smashing them in for fun. 27, pretty good age, but he's got at least 5-6 years at the top level to put the ball in the back of the net. You could also look at a number of other players as well. But for me, I was okay with it. When I heard that the deal wasn't going to happen and that it had been rejected, I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, right, now he needs to stay fit. So there's rumours that he's going to be back for the Aston Villa game. He needs a run now between now and the end of the season to almost save his Newcastle United career. because we cannot afford to keep doing this. And it goes back to the Darren Eales point for me. And I said it to you boys at the back end of December. Ruthless. A ruthless approach to Newcastle United. And this is what we have to do. Certain players that we like and that we want, we sometimes need to say goodbye. And if you can't stay fit, Callum Wilson, I'm sorry, we're going to have to be ruthless with you and we're going to have to move you on. Because if you can't stay fit, we need players to come in that can. And that's just the reality of it. No matter how much we like you and you're a great character and you're a good person and you're a great footballer that puts the ball in the back of the net, if you can't stay fit, you're not doing anything for us. And we've already lost out on that this season, where we've had to play him injured or Alexander Isak's got injured because he wasn't fit. We can't keep doing this. We are a different Newcastle United now that's moving in a different direction. And so I wasn't not overly bothered, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world for me to see that link happen. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the last link that we see, because I think, as we talked about Darren Eales and planting that little seed, I think between now and the window closing, there will be more teams that will be interested, whether it's this country or in Europe, who knows, maybe even Saudi, that will try and dabble in trying to get Callum Wilson out the door, especially if he comes off the bench, say against Fulham if he's fit, or Villa, and puts the ball in the net. Tongues will be wagging then, and people will want to come for it. So I was of a different mindset than I was for Trippier. I had that tug of war with Trippier. I didn't have it as much with Callum Wilson because I already know that we need to upgrade to a younger, fitter, hungrier striker at that point that we can see long term coming to the club. So that was kind of where I sat with that, boys.
Just before we leave. So just before we leave on Trippier and Wilson, right? I just want to answer this question from Will. So is the cup tied? It's okay, both can play the Champions League, but no, it resets after the group stage, so they can both play in the Champions League. So if the Champions League club did come in, that either of them could play in the Champions League campaign still. And also linking to what you just said there, Pete. David Cook says Wilson the next ASM to go to Saudi. So that's, remember when he was going to Dubai that time, I thought there may be something in this that he might. I know he was going to recover, but maybe have some talks or something over there. Who knows? They could have even taken place for all we know. But yeah, let's see how that plays out. Sorry, Chris.
No, it's all right, mate. I was just going to say this is the advantage that Newcastle have at the minute, because the clubs, Bayern Munich and allegedly Atletico Madrid and other clubs who come in for our players, the reason they're coming in for the players is because we haven't put them up for sale. People will say Darren Eales has been naive, or Darren Eales has been, not very clever with his words. But I think, like Pete, I think he's been extremely clever, and I think the club have been clever because we hold all the cards at the minute. Yes, we need to sell. Yes, we need to earn money and stuff like that. But at the same time, we're potentially getting the maximum price that we can for these players, because we haven't said openly, oh, we want rid of Trippier, we want rid of Callum Wilson. We haven't said that. So the fact that the clubs are coming in, we can then go, okay, well, listen, but what's the price? Because we're not desperate to sell. But if you want our player, you're going to have to. And this is the advantage with Callum Wilson. He's, is he 31 now, something like that? He's still,
Wilson, 31.
Yeah, he's still a top goal scorer. So even if someone came in, say, I don't know, say someone mentioned in the chat, then West Ham coming for Callum Wilson, we're going to go, it's at least 15 million. It's at least 50 million. But from West Ham's point of view, they're getting a top draw striker for 15 million who scores goals. Is Callum Wilson better than Danny Ings? Of course he is. Is Callum Wilson younger than Mikel Antonio? I think he is. So
yeah, Mikel Antonio is 34.
Yeah, exactly. So they're paying 15 million, and yes, he's injury prone, but if they can keep him fit, he's a guaranteed goal scorer. That's what he is. But we're getting the premium price for him because yes, he's coming towards the latter end of his career. But even if you get 15, 20 games a season out of Callum Wilson in a Premier League club, he's going to score your goals. So they look at it and think, well, actually, it's not a bad deal. We can then go out, use that money, and bring in a 30, 40, 50 million younger Callum Wilson, if you like, who's going to last us for the next 6, 7, 8 years. So the deal works for us and the deal works for them. So that's why I think we're actually in quite a strong position. People are saying that, oh, we've been really unprofessional and it feels like a joke of a window and we're not doing what we should be doing. I think we're doing exactly what we should be doing because we're not desperate. We don't need to go out and desperately sign players. Oh, hang on, what's going on? What is going on?
Hang on. Don't shoot me this time. Don't shoot me. But no, this is bigger than a signing. Colin has asked a question, lads.
I was going to come to it next, so I'm glad.
Colin has asked a question, so we're stopping everything and we're answering Colin's question. I don't care because Colin does. It's rare Colin has a question. Colin asks, if we sold Chris Woods for 18 million, what would the asking price be for Callum Wilson?
It was what I was going to ask you boys next. When Chris was finished speaking, I was going to ask you the same question. Colin, I'm so glad you asked that question. Brilliant stuff. More of the same, please.
No, we have to answer it now.
Yeah. What do we think? I know what I've got in my mind. I know how much, but I want to know what you boys think. How much is Callum Wilson going for?
Depends where he's going, though, doesn't it? Really, if he's going to a Premier League team, if he's going to Saudi, if he's going to a Championship club, let's say. Yano would probably send him to the Championship anyway. I'm going because we bought him for 20, but he's got Champions League experience now, international experience, and he's played at a World Cup. He'll be working with his marketing team. I'm going to hold out for. I'm going to say between 15 and 18.
Okay.
It's so hard because Colin makes a great point there because we got 18 million for Chris Wood. And then it's like, actually, because I was thinking in my head, a bit like Daz, I was thinking maybe 15 million, obviously because of the injury record. But what does 15 million get you these days? You're not getting a quality player of Callum Wilson. You're not getting a player of Callum Wilson's quality for 15 million. Like if you went elsewhere to try and get a striker, it's going to cost you a lot more than 15 million, isn't it? And he probably wouldn't be as good as Callum Wilson. Is it kind of are we in the same place as Trippier in that we want to recoup the money that we spent? I think anywhere between 15 and 20 million. I think anywhere between 15 and 20 million because that would be good for us, but also a bargain for the club buying him. Like I keep talking about West Ham, but if West Ham went and bought him and they had a fit Callum Wilson up front, that's a hell of a signing. That's a hell of a signing. But it's whether they can keep him fit. That's the problem.
Okay. I agree. And it's for that reason why, and I'm going purely off this window, that it's a great point that Colin made.
Yeah, it is.
18 million for Chris Wood. You've got to remember, what window did we sell in? January. Why? Forest were desperate. And when teams are desperate, they're willing to pay more money. So for me personally, I think we could get anywhere between 20 and 25 million for him in this window. For me, I think we could. 18 goals last season, 7 already this season, and he's had a chunk of this season where he's been injured. I think if they, like you boys said, if they could get him fit, whoever he went to, if they could get him fit, he will score goals for them. There's no doubt about it. He could end up on 15 plus goals if he stayed fit and ended up. I still think if he stays at Newcastle, I still think he'll get 15. I think he could get up to 15 plus goals in the back end of this season if he stayed at Newcastle. So I think he could do it elsewhere. However, if we waited till the summer, I'm bang where you are, boys. With a year left on his contract, I think anywhere between 15 and 20 million we'd get for him here. And I emphasize here, because in Saudi, if he got 15 goals for us between now and the end of the season, I think we could get 30 plus for him. That's just my opinion. I think Saudi could pay 30. And there's no, if he got 15 plus goals for Newcastle United between now and the end of the season, if he ended the season on 15 plus, there is no way that the Premier League could stop Saudi paying 30 million for him. 31 years old, might be 32 by that point, but still. 18 goals one season, then 15 the next, more than justified 30 million for Saudi. And I think he'd take the Saudi deal, if I'm honest with you. He needs to play in a country where it's warm, because a lot of players that pick up injuries really easily in England tend to go abroad and tend to stay fitter for longer. And that warm weather does make a difference to some players. And I think that would be it. So I've kind of given you 3 different scenarios there. But I think in this window, because teams are desperate, we could potentially get more money out from them. And because the window's closing every day, it's getting shorter and shorter, it allows for more people to kind of throw money at the situation. But no, that, like I say, that's just my opinion on that one. But at the moment, great question. In this moment in time, he's staying at Newcastle. But as we know, with many a deal, these things change. However, there is a player that has left Newcastle United. Javier Manquillo. It's been confirmed. We knew about it. We were just waiting for that official confirmation that Manquillo has joined Rafa Benitez at Celta Vigo. And look, he hasn't really played for as much in the last year, but he has gone. I think he's gone on an 18-month contract. We don't know what it is in terms of the fee, whether there even is one. He had 6 months left on his deal. Chris, what do you make of that? What do you make of that news with Javier Manquillo moving on?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've not got much to say on it really. Purely the fact that I think he's been a good servant. I think he's done a job for us, but he should have left 18 months ago, and I think he would say that himself. I think it's a good deal for the club, good deal for him. And it gets his wages off the wage bill, which I would assume are probably north of 40 grand a week. So I think it's good. It's one of the players that we know have got to move on off of the squad list. So I think it's good news all around.
That's obviously we're expecting it to happen at some point, whether it's now 6 months' time. I'm going to ask you the question straight off the bat. Does this signing or does this selling, should I say, mean anything to us within the transfer market, in your opinion?
No, it doesn't. Sorry, Pete, it doesn't. It doesn't mean because we're now near. But if we sold everyone that's been mentioned, that we're up to 7 places, that we're bringing in 7 players, like you want to hear. No, it doesn't. I'm afraid. No, look at Manquillo hasn't played all season. He's not in. As I said the other night, I thought he's a good enough servant for us. He didn't get many games. He's great under Rafa. Obviously, he's come back playing with Rafa now again. But no, best for him, best for us. I can't say anything bad about him. I'm not sure if he ever learned to speak English, but I can't say anything bad about him. And
don't start that again, guys. Come on.
No. But who's Miggy going to talk to? That's what I worry about now. No. Wish him the best, but it doesn't mean anything. Look at it'd be the same thing as if we were to get rid of Richie and Dunwood. It's not going to mean anything because we're not going to. They're not going to generate, like, it's a free transfer. We're not going to generate any funds to help us out in that respect. But it's just another space that's left there in the squad.
Definitely. He'll always be fondly remembered for that fantastic goal at Old Trafford. You shared the video on our chat, Chris, of the went around in the away end where you were caught on camera celebrating like mad. It was a great finish. I think that goal has been replayed a lot over the last 24 hours when we knew he was going to be moved on. But again, a player that never really kind of moaned in the Spanish media or the English media about not playing many games. Always came in and did a job. Lots of fans and journalists have talked about that run that he made away at Leeds that really kind of set off Eddie Howe's tenure at Newcastle United when Shelby scored the resulting free kick. And look, he's been a good signing for us because he did a job at the time that we needed it. Whether it was left back, right back, wherever, always created problems for the opposition, and he kind of goes with our blessing, really. We won't miss him. It does, though, However, and we talked about this before, open up a space in the 5-man squad. So I'm going to stay positive. Hey, boys, you guys want the signings. So do I. So if I'm going to find any little nook and cranny where I can talk about a potential
Master Pete.
I will do it. And we have now 2 spaces, 2, not 1, but 2 spaces now free in that 25-man squad, because we know that Sandro Tonali is not going to be in that second half of the season 25-man squad. We know he's suspended. Neither is Harry Manquillo. So 2 spaces. Now, for me, it doesn't make sense to have 2 spaces free in that 25-man squad in the Premier League. So, of course, we have to fill them. And let's not forget, the likes of Ben Parkinson and Louis Miley don't need to fill that, because they're youth players. They can play regardless. So why not replace them with ready-made signings for Newcastle United? Why not?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep to it. There's lots of people people on socials saying we're not making any signings. We're not. We are staying positive. For me, it doesn't make sense. We have to improve this squad. We have to going into the second half of the season. So I'm going to maintain that moving forward. I want to throw something else at you because we touched on this the other day on our previous show last week, but we haven't really had an update on this. So this is something that could potentially move on, and it's what Dom Skir again put out last week with regards to Jamal Lascelles and a reported offer from Besiktas. We've had a few days to kind of think about this, boys, and kind of like let this sink in. Obviously, the Trippier and Wilson stuff's taken our minds off things related to Jamal Lascelles, but are we in a position to lose him this window? Do you think anything will materialize from that deal? He's been linked with Besiktas for a while now, going back to the summer. So it's not brand new information here. Chris, what are your thoughts on that, Lascelles, since that initial link's been kind of resurfaced?
I think it's a very similar situation to the Wilson deal. I think he's a player who we know is probably not going to be at Newcastle in the next 12, 18 months. I think he's a player we could do with moving on. He's on very high wages for the I always sound harsh here, but he's on very high wages for his capability, I would say. He's vastly improved under Eddie Howe, and we've seen that. And I think he's a good professional, and I think that I wouldn't be upset if he stayed. Neither would I with Wilson, obviously, for different reasons. But I think he's probably outstayed his welcome at Newcastle United, and I think that we do need a replacement. And similar to Wilson, I think if we were to sell Jamal Lascelles to Besiktas, we would need to replace him because it would leave us very, very shy in the centre-back position, obviously with Fabian Schär there currently occupying the first team spot. But if we lose Fabian Schär and we don't have Jamal Lascelles, we're then probably playing Emil Kraft at centre-back, and that's not ideal. Yes, some people will say we could possibly play Botman on the right because we know he can play on the right, and then maybe play Burn centre-back, etc., etc. So we could get by, but I do think the club have been highlighting the right centre-back spot as one of the places that we need to improve. I think we saw it, didn't we, boys, on the, when they did the Amazon documentary and they were looking at players' positions that they needed to improve on or highlight, and the right centre-back position was highlighted. So we know the club are looking at it. And I think once Jamal Lascelles leaves the club, he will be a player that we look to replace quite quickly. Do we want to do it this window? I don't know. Or do we keep hold of Jamal Lascelles till the summer and then he leaves on a free? Again, it probably comes back to money. If Besiktas are willing to pay 3-4 million, do we go, do you know what, let's take the money now and we'll bring our right centre back in now? Or, like I said earlier, we'll make do without it. Yes, it's a risk. Yes, it's not ideal. But, will they then just wrap Fabian Schär in bubble wrap and go, do you know what, we'll just keep him fit, hopefully, and then we'll deal with it in the summer? I don't know, but I like Jamal Lascelles. I think that on his day, I think he's a good defender, and we've seen he's put in some really good performances. When I was at the Etihad, Jamal Lascelles played really well against Erling Haaland. He was fantastic, kept him quiet all game. But he is prone to the odd mistake. He's not blessed with pace, and it probably is time, it probably is time for his time at the club to come to an end, if you like. So, you know, it's a tough one. It's another one where we'll lose, and again, you know, we're losing a leader in the dressing room if he does go. But it all comes down to money for me, boys. If the money gets put on the table, it's something we've got to consider, and I firmly believe that.
That's have you the same mindset of Chris? You know, with regards to Jamal Lascelles, or do you think we should we cash in now to ensure that we get something from him before his contract runs out? Because, and you might have a different kind of stance on this. It does look like that we are not going to offer him a new deal. So should we get something now before it's too late?
Yeah, look, I'm going to agree with Rich Joblin. Rich's last line there: cash in now where he can. He's with his performances this season, his stock has never been high. But so yeah, I would sell him. His contract is running down. It doesn't look like we're going to offer him another one. But if we do, he's deserved it for his performances this season, in my opinion, as a backup squad player. But I wouldn't sell him unless I knew there was someone else coming in. I know Kraft can play there. You could put Dummett in as well. You kind of, it links back to more of the comments in the chat as well. Like, I remember we really wrote off the season if we're cashing in on Wilson, Trippier, Lascelles. Who's to say that all of them or any of them would go? But yeah, I think I would get something for him now while we can, and also then linking to what Foxy has said here, that Besiktas are not doing so well. They lost again at the weekend, and so he's saying that it wouldn't be the club that he'd pick to go unless they're doubling his wages. Yeah, in all, I'd sell, but I'd want to know that we're bringing in someone else. Maybe saving all we can, but the sales to bring in that one big player if needs be, and get one player then to see us over until the summer or a loan.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I'm going to throw at you boys very, very quickly is that, and this is all hypothetical here. I'm just going to throw something out there to you. There was a link, not a link, but there was a transfer news rumor that Matthijs de Ligt of Bayern Munich was open to a move away from Bayern. It says in the summer, but he's not happy with his playing time at this moment in time at Bayern Munich. I know he started today, but he hasn't been playing as much as he would like, and is regarded as sort of the third, fourth choice centre back. I think one or two are African Cup of Nations and the Asian Cup at this moment in time. So, would you hypothetically take Matthijs de Ligt as a swap deal for Kieran Trippier this month? I'm putting it out there to you. Chris, what are your thoughts?
All day, every day. Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you why.
Not too long ago, Matthijs de Ligt was earmarked as one of the best centre-backs in football. Yes, it hasn't turned out for him at Bayern, but he hasn't ended up at Bayern by accident, is what I'd say. Big, powerful, strong centre-back. Let's not forget as well, Bayern have got some good centre-backs. You know, they recently bought Kim Min-jae, didn't they? So he's in
the Asian Cup at the moment.
Yeah. So they've got Kim Min-jae. I think they've still got Upper Meccano. I think, they've just brought in Eric Dyer. You know, they've got a good bunch of centre backs. There's probably a couple I've missed there as well. But I think if the price was right, well, if the price is Kieran Trippier, yeah, 1,000,000%. Like him and Botman would be unbelievable. If we had them two at centre back, we're causing problems next season, 1,000,000%. And then add into that a number 6, possibly a new striker, possibly a right winger. We're going to go into the next season very excited. So if Matthijs de Ligt is a possibility, we've got to get the deal done. Got to.
Daz, would you take that same deal? I'm going to throw it at you as well. Kieran Trippier as a swap deal for Matthijs de Ligt. Would you take that deal, and why?
Yes, I would take de Ligt. I have my eyes on the Sporting Lisbon lad, Osman, whatever his name is, but he was at African Nations as well. But the reason why, Pete, there's only one reason why I would like to see him come, because the smile it would bring to your face, Pete, would be a joy to behold, I think. So you'd love to see him. I know you've been talking about him for a good 2 years now as someone you'd love to see at Newcastle. So yeah, no, look, we need to be in the summer. We need to be thinking of who's going to be a long-term replacement for Shar, and so that we need someone that's going to rotate a bit as well, with Shar and Botman and cover, and depending on how many competitions we're in as well. But we need someone. If Lascelles is gone, we need someone in there.
Definitely. Look, you've already touched on it before. We've got 2 right backs there. If Trippier was to go and De Ligt was to come in, he's good friends with Botman. They came through the Ajax academy together. They know each other really well, and it would just make sense. Right back, centre back, both Dutch, both know each other really well, know their games well. It would make perfect sense. I think if we're looking at signing him in the summer, he'd probably cost anywhere between 50 and sort of 60 million, because he's still, I think he's 25. Great age. Great age. Okay, we got a finger point, so yeah, great age.
I think great age.
Sort of 25, great age. So they've got the chance to build and grow together. I think, but yeah, I just think having that solidity of knowing you're the main centre back, which I think has been his problem both at Juventus and Bayern Munich, is that he hasn't known he's been the main centre back. I think he could potentially do the business in the Premier League. That would be an interesting deal there. So I just wanted to throw that at you boys. But look, what I will say is that we'll talk about incomings now, because there has been rumours of players coming in. Although people are saying that there's no players coming in, there's no moves to be made, there are still rumours being kind of thrown around. And one of them, quite interestingly, that we've talked about before, but we'll revisit it, is this man, Amadou Onana. Luke Edwards, as an exclusive, said that Newcastle are looking into Amadou Onana to solve their midfield problems, and they've identified him as that midfield option. Some have talked about from a perspective that he could be that replacement of Joe Linton. Some have said he could be that alternative to Joe Linton. I want to get your thoughts on this, boys. Of course, people have already gone one step further and put him in the black and white stripes already. But look, Amadou Onana, boys, what do you make of him potentially coming in to Newcastle United? Look, Daz, I'll start with you with this one.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm going to hand over to Chris in a sec, because Chris is going to have the inside knowledge about Onana living in an Everton house, but more or less. He's a great option to bring in. I'm not sure he'd be a replacement for Joe Linton, though. And everyone knows we want to keep Joe Linton, but can he not play in the number 6 position though? He's kind of more. I know he's more a bit of a mixed match as well. But is he an option to Calvin Phillips that we've been talking about and still hasn't gone anywhere? I thought he would slot in kind of a number 6 kind of position. But Chris, I'm going to hand over to you and where you've watched him more closely than I've been watching.
Yeah, I mean, he's a funny one, because I think he can play in the number 6, but I don't think predominantly he is a number 6. Everton have Garner Gay currently playing in the number 6, and Onana weirdly is very similar to how Joe Linton is for us. He's a bit of a destroyer in the middle of the park. He can get forwards, he can defend.
You're good.
Still
You're
there.
good now, Chris.
Sorry, I don't know if I lost.
Yeah,
good. Yeah, sorry. I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily call him a 6, but I think he could play there. But being a Joe Linton type player, so he'd definitely do a job for us. the big thing for me is the price. Like, you know, I speak to Everton fans now and they're saying 70 million. And like, you're not paying 70 million for Onana, in my opinion. They bought him, I think, for 38 million. And he had a really good first season at Everton. This season he struggled a little bit for me. Like, he's been a little bit stop and start. That's not to say, you know, he couldn't turn out to be a very good player. I think he's still only 22, so he's still young. And he's big, strong, powerful lad. And like I say, he drives the team forwards, and defensively he's okay. And I think he probably could play number 6, but he's not your orthodox number 6. Certainly not what I've seen anyway. But yeah, I can see why Newcastle are interested in him. As I say, he probably is an alternative to Joe Linton, but I wouldn't swap him for Joe Linton, is what I'd say. So it depends what happens with Joe Linton, and it depends what Eddie Howe wants to do going forward. But it would be quite funny taking Everton's other best player off them as well. That would be quite enjoyable. But again, it would have to be the right price. Like, I wouldn't want to be paying 70 million, because you can get far better players out there for 70 million. But if you said 40 to 45, I think it'd be a good sign.
He did really well against when we played against him on Bruno. He did a good job on Bruno that day, actually.
He's just such a big physical player. He gets about the pitch really, really well, and he's one of those players who's got like legs that never end. Like, he puts in a tackle and his legs just extends, and you know, he can break up possession for you. And I'd say he's pretty quick as well. But it would really depend on the price for me. And technically, I don't know how good he is. Like, from when I've seen him, like, he's not the kind of player who's going to slot you that intricate pass. He's just not that player. But he will win the ball back a lot for you and give it to the players who can potentially do that. So could he be a Joe Linton type? Yeah, probably could.
Definitely. I think this could be a good signing if it happens. I'd be excited about the fact that he'd be coming in for the reasons that Chris said, for his age, for the impact that he's had on, let's be honest, not a great Everton team. And the fact that he's been so influential in their team and become really a hugely important player to the way in which they play fills me with hope that he could potentially, if we sign him, come in and do a job. Now, I think I said to you boys, sort of in our chat, I thought we could potentially get him for around the same fee of Anthony Gordon. I'm actually going to kind of revisit that slightly. And the reason being is because there was a report today with regards to Mark Douglas that said, I think they signed him for about 33 million. And they are looking at sort of like double that price, which says the 70 million that you're saying, Chris, that the Everton fans are kind of expecting. Now, for me, like, that's too much. Like, he's not worth that. He hasn't done enough to command that sort of thing. You think about what 70 million could get you, and just think about the fact that we've got a player that's waiting to come back in August, who played in the Champions League semi-final, right, in Sandro Tonali, that we bought for 50 million, 55 million max, everything in. And like, for me, Sandro Tonali is a much better player than Amadou Onana, in my opinion. And so for me, like, if you're going to go and spend 70 million on a central midfielder, you go and get Nico Barella from Inter Milan. You get him for 70 million, in my opinion. That's where you go and get your money, and you spend your money wisely if you're going to spend 70 million on a midfielder, not an Amadou Onana, in my opinion. But I think there's a lot of qualities to his game that you boys have touched on that I actually think are really, really useful. And I'll just throw up his stats here. So if we go to, first of all, his expected goals are not too bad. He does put the ball in there. Aerial duel, big, physical, as you mentioned, Chris, tall player that likes to win his duels in the air. I'm going to go down. His pass completion is not too bad. His long pass completion is not too bad either. But here is where you've talked about, Chris. It is where he kind of shines, really. His tackles in the middle of the park. Dribble is tackled In terms of that, for me, that's where he really excels as a player. And I think that is very, very similar to Joe Linton from that perspective. And I just think from that, and some of his stats don't look great, but his key stats are what make him such a really good player. And I think that ball winner in midfield that is able to break up play, use his athletic ability to get around and cause problems is what's key. And actually, you touched on it that he could play in the number 6. Now, similar players here that he's linked to. You got Tolisso at Lyon, defensive midfielder. You've got Cristante at Roma, defensive midfielder. James Garner, mostly defensive. Jefferson Lerma, mostly defensive. Janot at Brentford, mostly defensive. They mostly play in that deeper lying role. You've got Endo at Liverpool as well, and Egerson at Freiburg. They're all very much defensive lining players. And I think that tells us everything we need to know about the type of player that we're trying to recruit in midfield. We're looking at that Joe Linton kind of alternative that knows how to play sort of a deeper role. Whenever I've seen Onana personally, I've seen him almost kind of sitting in that number 8 position. But it doesn't mean to say that he can't come and sit in that number 6 and do a job for the team. And I just think he would be a really, really good signing, but just not at 70 million for me. And whether that deal would come down slightly in the summer, another 6 months left on his, less on his contract could potentially help him. I know he's still got, a bit of a lengthy deal, but I don't know. But his attributes and his ability is for sure a player that could do the job. And I think that would be an exciting signing if it could go through. Another player, boys, and I'll come to it in just a second, but I've just noticed in the top left-hand corner, we've got over 300 in the chat. So look, it makes sense to give a little shout out to you, all you 300 for coming and being a part of the show tonight. Hope you're enjoying. Get your questions in for us, boys. We'll come to that in just a second. Or for all the lads and lasses that are in the chat right now. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you subscribe. And of course, if you're not a loaded ultra, you want to become a member, you know what to do. And we'll give you those details again later on in the show. But there's another play. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say 300 in the chat. Smash the like. You beat it. You reached the target. You blew it away on 250 last during the week. So why not hit it again?
Go for it. You know it makes sense. I'll come back to you boys actually because we've actually been linked with a couple of other players. I want to get your thoughts about this. We know these players because we've been talking about them before. One of which is I don't know if it's on the screen. There we go. Yep. Manu Kone from Borussia Mönchengladbach. And this was from our friend of the channel. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, Graham Bailey. As a possible sort of alternative to Joe Linton. Manu Kone has been mentioned there. We know about him. We know his abilities. We know where he's best played in this position. Can you see this deal potentially being done in January, boys? Or is this one that you think is more of sort of a summer kind of transfer? Chris, what do you think about this Manu Kone? Because I know you spotted it. You put it in the chat as well about this potential deal coming to fruition, or certainly being linked with it. What were your thoughts when you saw this kind of link come about?
Do you know what, mate? Like we've spoke about Manu Kone a lot on the channel, haven't we? And obviously seeing the likes of Graham Bailey, who's been on here a few times now on Loathers, like him linking us is exciting because he's that defensive midfielder that I think that we've been crying out for now for a long time. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? I've just reading there the article from Florian Plettenberg. It's interesting, isn't it, how all these clubs are pushing the same narrative as what Darren Eales said. You know, They'd only consider a sale in the next few days if an extraordinary offer was to come on the table. And this is what clubs are doing at the moment. They're all positioning themselves. Probably a player, Manu Kone is probably a player that they know will move on, but they probably don't want to lose. And in January, no one wants to lose a player midway through a season. But again, it all comes back to, boys, if the money's right, a deal is there to be done. And I think Manu Kone, for me, he'd be a player that, like, you know, Liverpool have got in Endo. He'd be a player that would come in. He's not going to score you 10, 15 goals a season, but he's a player who can protect that back four, a player who can, you know, do the dirty work, put out the fires. And as I said, it releases and frees up the likes of Bruno Gomes to push further up the field. He's a player who, he'd be a good squad player for us. He'd be a good player to come in and improve other players on the pitch. Probably not the most glamorous, even though he's got fantastic hair. But
hey, Taribo West.
Yeah, our very own Taribo West, yeah. But no, I'm excited by a link like this because we've all been screaming out for a defensive midfielder. How many times in games this season and last season have we gone, if only we had that player who could just see the game out for us, keep us solid defensively at the back. And I do feel like in our midfield, that's what we lack big time. Like, Bruno's been playing there, and Bruno's a fantastic player, but you don't really want Bruno Gomes to be doing that role. It's probably the unflattering role in the team. It's basically a player to just sit there and kind of, you know, scrape up, kind of, you know, dart around the pitch, win back possession, give it to your ball playing midfielders. That's what you need. And Manu Kone, from what I've seen and what stats that we've previously got into, he'd be the kind of player that I think would flourish at Newcastle. So I was really pleased when I saw the rumours, Pete, because we've been crying out for a defensive midfielder, and he's a player or a link that's not going away. And if the money's right, again, I think it's a deal we should look to try and do if we can.
That's Manu Kone. As Chris said, we've talked about him many a time before. He's not new to our radar. Can you see it happening in January?
No, I know we talked to him. It's around that time I looked at him. I haven't seen him since, and watched a few videos on him and stuff. But no, I think it's an easy link because we've been linked to him before, and people we have people we are looking at, or positions we are looking at. It's easy to put Kieran Trippier and Kone in the list again, but. Like, we have gone back to players in the past. We've been linked to them before, but our players we put bids at Botman being an example. But no, I can't see it happening in January, especially if it's hardly going to be a loan deal. It'll be a cash deal to bring him in, or maybe loan to buy kind of thing. Maybe that may be part of, to get around FFP. But no, I don't think so.
I'm just going to throw this one out here because we were going to talk about it anyway at some point. John Gandhi, I don't know if you can see it on the chat.
Yeah, I can see it, mate.
It's all right. My internet's playing up. I think we're all suffering with the moment.
Yeah, the storm
on the Kimmich link. Obviously, Joshua Kimmich. It's very clear. Lots of people talk about it in Germany, and it's on socials as well that Kimmich and Tuchel are not getting on at the moment. There's a clear fallout. Kimmich is happy to kind of move on and leave. You know, what do you think about that potential link? We put it on earlier on in the show. There was a sort of a tentative link with regards to a swap move with Kieran Trippier. Look, are we living, or are these links, should we say, because it's not us, are these links living in cloud cuckoo land? Or is there a chance that one of these, I think is putting on our
cheers
buying boys on a bender? I love that.
Yeah.
Could Kimmich be drinking a beer or two in the big market at some point down the line, whether it's January or the summer, or are we thinking that's a little bit too far-fetched for us? Look, Daz, I'll fly straight back to you with this one. What do you think?
Bayern boys on a bender. Okay, stop. Right. Do I see this one happening? No. Maybe some kind of strange swap loan deal happening, but no. I think we talked a bit about it there the other night as well. I think people were saying he's on 300 grand a week. Which is crazy. And he's about, is it like 27, 28? Yeah, 28. We'd love to see him come to Newcastle, of course, but I don't know. I can't see this one happening either. Not if we weren't worried about FFP, then maybe something could happen. But no, not where we are now. Not in January.
Chris,
sorry,
no. I'm putting it out there. Put it out there. See what people think. Is that very much a fantasy? Joshua Kimmich at Newcastle United at some point, whether it's now or in the future.
I think Ian Stevenson summed it up. Ian Stevenson wrote knee chance. I mean, it's good to dream. I mean, if you offered me Joshua Kimmich or you said that we were getting Joshua Kimmich, like I would be bouncing off the walls, and I think every other Premier League club, every other fan would be panicking because he's like that. That's like a Casemiro type signing. That's like a Rodri type signing. He's in the same conversation as those guys. So if we were signing a player with that ability, God, I'd be excited. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not going to go to bed tonight thinking, oh, imagine if we get Joshua Kimmich. It's just not, because I just can't see it happening. Hey, weirder things have happened, and I'm not saying that we couldn't attract him with our project, but I think it's highly unlikely purely because of the stature of the player. Like, I just think he's just so good. And the fact that potentially it would mean he could maybe not be playing European football if he joins us. I would say it's probably unlikely that we'd attract Joshua Kimmich, but I tell you what, if there's an opportunity to get him, go and get him.
Daz, I'm going to steal the chat just for 1 second.
Yeah.
Because Samsonite Dove says, well, we got Isak, we got Tonali, why not Kimmich? So the question we all ask ourselves, boys, in the loaded chat is, you telling us there's a chance?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if you'd have said to me a year ago that we'd have got Sandro Tonali, I'd have laughed you. I'd have laughed you off the show. So, I'm not saying it's not possible. But yeah.
I told you it was going to happen, though, Chris.
You did. You said this years ago, Daz. You knew it was going to happen. But yeah, do you know what? It's just horrible thinking about players like that because he's just next level. He's just so good. If it was in a couple of years' time, maybe. But yeah, I just think, and as Toon Gamer says, 300 grand a week. I think it's just a little bit too high for us at the minute, I would say.
Ronald would come up with an absolute quality comment in the chat. The rumours of Kimmich wants to have a bevy on Shields Road Biker. I love it. I absolutely love it. Get him there. If we sign him, Mandy, Mirdad, we know you watch the channel. Get him over to Biker once he's signed. That's what we say.
Announcement video. Yeah.
That's the welcome video on socials.
Yeah.
Just turned up having a beer or two.
Him and Delict with a bottle of brown ale. There's the announcement video. There's the announcement video.
With Botman as well. With Botman behind the bar pouring the pints. How good would that be?
Jesus.
Brilliant. Look, go ahead,
sorry, it's a question here from earlier, and since you mentioned Botman, now I'm going to throw it in because he's surely a contender. Let's say the question was basically, and I will dig it out, was who would be if Lascelles and Trippier were to leave, and Wilson, who would our captain be? I know you had kind of said, Chris, you were thinking maybe Dan Burn, but
I think Dan Burn only because I seen him with the captaincy the other day. So I assume he's third in line behind. Well, obviously Wilson wasn't available, Lascelles wasn't available, Trippier wasn't available, so that's why I assumed Dan Burn. But if you were to ask me who I would pick if it was me, right now I'd probably pick Bruno. Because he epitomises, doesn't he, the passion, and he gets the city, he gets the fans. I think he'd be a really good captain, actually. I really do. And who knows, maybe that can makes him even more. Makes it even harder for him to leave. Do you know what I mean? Like, we know he loves it here at Newcastle, and we know that he's a massive fan of both the city and the club and the fans. I think giving him the captaincy, it would mean the world to him, and I think that I do. I think he'd be a brilliant captain.
You guys are breaking up a little bit, so I don't know if you're coming to me or not.
Go on, Pete. Go on.
Oh,
mate.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I heard Chris mention Bruno, and he would definitely be one that I would consider. Ultimately, if Trippier and Wilson were to leave, they would have to bring in a new leadership group, because Trippier and Wilson are part of that leadership group, along with the likes of Dan Burn and Jamal Lascelles as well. What I would say is that I think two additions to that leadership group would be Botman and Shaw, because they've both shown their leadership skills, and in my opinion, they're both here long term. I would love Bruno to be part of that too. I'm just not convinced on how long Bruno's going to be here for.
Yeah,
that's my only concern. Yeah. I think he'd be a brilliant captain. I think he would elevate the team and the players. I'm just not sure on how long he'd be around here for. We can't rule out Sean Longstaff, who's already been captain at the club. He's already captained us this season. So he would be an addition too. So they're just a few players that we throw out. But I think if Trippier, Wilson, Lascelles were to leave, I think it automatically goes to Dan Burn, in my opinion. But I think they're Shaw, Botman, Bruno, Longstaff, I think they would form the next few, and maybe even Pope, to kind of add in there. You've got a few that would take on that leadership role. Who I would give it to out of all of them, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving it to Dan Burn. We've already seen that your club captain doesn't necessarily have to play every game, and I honestly think after this season, I don't think he will. But that's just me.
That's the problem, isn't it, with some of the comment? Well, not the problem with the comments, but some of the suggestions that people are putting in, because I think Fab Sharp would be a good shout, and obviously we've said Bruno, we've said Dan Burn, but the trouble with someone like Fab Sharp is we're looking to replace Fabian Schär. We're looking for the right centre back. Me personally, I always like the club captain to be one of the first names on the team sheet. Maybe that's me just being traditional. We've seen it with Alan Shearer, we've seen it with Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, those players who are going to play, and that's what makes me gravitate it towards Bruno, because right now Bruno is our star player. The logical choice would probably be Botman, because Botman is going to be here for a long time, I hope. And he's a player who's in the team every week. I just don't know if he's captain material yet. I just don't know if he's that voice. Maybe he's more of a presence captain. We saw that with Colaccini, didn't we? Colaccini wasn't a screamer or a shouter, but he was a good leader. And maybe in time it could be Sven Botman. In terms of squads, looking at the squad in the next 1, 2, 3 years, Sven Botman would be a good choice, because I think Sven Botman will still be here in 3 years' time, and I think he's a fantastic player, and he'll play every week. But just in terms of where we are, immediately, that's why I think Bruno. But Pete, I take your point, because how long will Bruno be here? This is the question. So Dan Burn's probably a safe choice.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm not confident Bruno's going to be here very long. That's just my opinion. And that's why that's why I didn't go for Bruno straight away, is that I don't think he'll be here very long. Yeah. That's just me. But no, all of those have got the ability to be.
Yeah, they have.
So I think William Swift put Isak in there. I don't think Isak's a captain for me. he might be later on in his career. I don't even think he'd probably want that responsibility, if I'm honest with you. I think he's just quite happy just putting the ball in the back of the net. But no, I think it's a really interesting conversation. But the problem is that, and this goes back to the point, and I want to raise this question to you, is that in just a second, but it goes back to the point is that we don't know what this squad's going to look like in, say, 6 months' time. Like,
because we've not done a squad game, that's why.
Yeah, well, of course, squad game's coming. People beware. Squad game is coming, and you are not going to want to miss that show. That's for sure. But even in 6 months' time, we don't know what this squad's going to look like, let alone in a year's time. So it's really hard to pinpoint somebody for that captain's role, because I've just got a feeling this squad's going to be very, very different between now and in a year's time. And just really quickly, I want to get your thoughts before we wrap up with some questions, boys. Is that this came up, and I wanted to kind of throw it at you. Like, Craig Howe put this article out today, and he put Newcastle United and why the Champions League qualification created a bit of an illusion. They're not there yet as a Saudi-funded super club. Eddie Howe and UK owners beat FFP by being good, meaning because we got Champions League football. Do you agree with that sentiment that Craig Hope's put just on his headline there, that we maybe have achieved too much too soon? In your opinions, what do you boys think of that? From what Craig Hope, he put that article out today.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in here, Chris. I read that article. It's probably his best article he put out over the weekend. There were a lot of them, but yeah, no, it was a good story and a good insight into it as well. A good way of looking at it. Everything went our way. Everything that could possibly go our way went our way. Well, apart from Pope getting sent off and losing the League Cup final, everything else went our way. And it just, this season, everything was against us, as in the way it played out from Toonali onwards. Because great moments, but even the PSG in Paris, that draw, because we would have been in the Champions League, and that would again papered over the cracks a bit if we'd still be in the Champions League as well. But a bit of reality, a bit of dose of reality. We've come a long way from Eddie's taken us a long way, but this is a hell of a longer way to go. And this is where it leads into this talk of we had in the tweet, phase 2, and the amount of changes and we're going to need to make now. So many players there that are coming to the end of contracts, are aging, and we need to rebalance, refocus, and regroup, and go again. And it's going to take time as well. This summer, we'll go mental this summer, I imagine. A lot of changes, but it can't all be done in the summer either. It's going to take another couple of windows to get us to where we were stronger and to be able to compete then on a number of different competitions. So, but yeah, it is a very good article, and I recommend, if you haven't read that one, read that one. That would be my suggestion. Sorry, Chris.
No, not at all, mate. No, I think there's some truth to the story. It's difficult because we have overachieved. Like when Eddie Howe took over, everyone knows this anyway, but when Eddie Howe took over, we looked destined for relegation. We managed to stay up. Then we've gone straight next season into the Champions League. Like, it was probably too quick. Some people say, "Oh, we're not ready," and blah blah blah. I mean, we wouldn't swap that moment at all. Like, us finishing ahead of Liverpool and getting the Champions League was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And you look back, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we'd have gone into the Europa League or the Europa Conference, maybe we'd still be sitting in that competition right now. We probably would. Maybe we wouldn't have all the injuries we've had. Maybe we'd still be in the Champions League if we didn't have all the injuries we've had. It's all hindsight, isn't it? The way I feel about all of this is, I think we've probably taken like 3 steps forward when we were expecting to take 1 or 2. And now we're going to have to accept the fact that this season there's a real possibility that we might have to take 1 or 2 of those steps back. But that's not going to stop us in the longevity of the project, because the project was always a 5-10 year project in order for us to start competing with the big clubs. This is just a little bump in the road. We didn't want it. We didn't think we were going to have it. but it looks like we could potentially have it. And for me now, it's about how we react to that and how that we move forward. This season is a complete write-off. Obviously, it's been disappointing, but there are mitigating factors to that. But it's how we handle it and how we deal with it. Like if we were to get any kind of European football this season, it would be good. Like I was looking at the league table before, and I cannot believe we're behind Chelsea, and I think we're 8 points behind West Ham. If you'd have said that to me in August, I'd have just laughed at you.
Less,
but that's
6 points, mate. 6 points.
6 points behind West Ham.
Because they didn't win today. Because they didn't win today because they drew 2.
Oh, that's right. No, that's right.
So we're only 6 points behind them.
I looked. Yeah, I looked when they were winning. Yeah, I didn't take into account the penalty. But even if you'd said to me in August, come January, you're going to be 6 points behind West Ham, I'd have been like, nah, I don't think so. But that kind of tells you the struggles that we've had this season. But already, I'm looking ahead. I'm looking forward to the summer. I'm looking forward to us bringing all these new players in. I'm looking forward to having Sandro Tonali back. I'm looking forward to having a squad full of players where you look at the bench and you go, oh, yeah, we'll just bring these on. We'll swap things around. We'll change things up. We've just not had that this season. And that's been the difficulty. That's been the struggle. But yeah, you take the rough with the smooth, don't you? And at the moment, it's rough. But it will improve. And I think we've got some exciting times ahead. But yeah, to be fair, I agree with what Craig Hope said. It's just one of those things. Would we be saying this if we were still sitting in the Champions League? No, but we're not, and that's why we are where we are right now. But it's not always going to be this way, and things will improve.
This is why it's always been a real tug of war with me, lads, is because I'm looking at the league table and like obviously West Ham conceded a last-minute penalty. I think it was like 13 minutes extra time there.
Yeah.
Two red cards. They drew 2-2 at Sheffield United where we won 8-0.
Yeah.
And you look at the table, and you look at the table, and you think to yourself,
"What?
Jesus Christ! We've had an absolute horror show of a December, and already a horror show of a January. But we're only 6 points behind sixth place. Like, and you're thinking to yourself, like, although our position in the table looks really, really bad, you look after Villa, and you're thinking, we've got a superb run here. And it adds to the point here, and we've not even touched on it. And I put this on here. It's not a transfer related thing, but I put it here for a reason, just to kind of give some perspective. Is that there was actually some really positive news in all of this, in that we're potentially getting 3 players back by the time we go to Luton. In that Callum Wilson could well be back for Fulham, if not Villa. You know, you've got Joe Willock that could be back for Villa, if not Luton, and Harvey Barnes potentially even back earlier than Willock, so he could be back for Fulham or Villa as well. And you've got 3 big players that are coming back into the squad, and you think to yourself, hold on a second, we're only 6 points behind West Ham, and we've played Liverpool twice, we've played Man City twice. I've gone through it all before on the previous shows. I'm not going to go through it again, but we played all of these tough teams away from home, or played some of the top teams in the league twice already. They're already gone. We don't have to worry about them now for the rest of the season. And you just think to yourself, 6 points is not a big score to overturn in the second half of the season. And if you do that, where other teams have still got to go to difficult grounds, can we not get 6th place? Can we not see where we're going by March, April in fighting at that top of the table? It might look impossible now. It could go very, very quickly. And I just think to myself, there's an opportunity there to really kind of kick on and make something positive of this season still. And I think, yeah, it might be too much too soon in terms of fighting for the Champions League. I think Craig Hope's right in that, doing that back to back. But I tell you what, if we finish 5th or 6th, this season, or even 7th, I think that's a really good season, back-to-back European competition. We're showing our credentials there of being a regular team in European football. And I think that will tell us a lot more about ourselves. If we go through this injury-ravaged season and still finish in Europe, that tells us exactly where we need to be and exactly where we're going in the future. And I just think that's a really important part. But I just think everything with Darren Eales, everything with the transfers, everything that we've talked about tonight puts me in a direction that Newcastle United are ripping up their plan. They're ripping it up. they're not now going with these tried and trusted players that Eddie Howe loves in Callum Wilson and banter and Trippier and all the rest of it. Is that actually it didn't work this season? After a good season, I think they tried to persist with some of these players, and now they're thinking, you know what, we might need to rip up the tactic sheet and go in a different direction. And I think the summer will prove that very, very different. But look,
I'll believe that, Pete, when they start making bids for South American players we're linked with, because I'm sick of being linked with all these class South American young talents, wonder kids, and then them going elsewhere. Case in point, I know I'm not even going to mention him again, but I know Foxy brought it up again. Guess who scored their second goal for Benfica there the other day as well? I came off the bench again. Yes, Marco Leonardo. Rip it up and go again. Phase 2.
And do you know what, boys? With the way we've got to look at it, Pete's right in the sense that, you know, if we were to finish 5th or 6th this season, Europa League football, we'd look back, wouldn't we, and go, bloody hell, we finished 5th or 6th, and for the first half of the season, we didn't have any players. So we have a full fit team, and we go into next season with the likes of Sandro Tonali, hopefully with 3 or 4 other high quality players. We're going to go into that Europa League and think, you know what, we've got a good chance of winning this. We've got a really good chance of winning this. And there's no reason why we couldn't do that. And that's probably, and you know, people may not like this, but that's probably our level at the minute. We probably shouldn't be in that top 4 position. We finished there last season and we thoroughly deserved it, and we were fantastic. And we saw that we can compete on our day. We can compete with anyone. Look what we did to PSG at St James's. We went to the San Siro. We were you know, rugged. We didn't you know, we managed to come away with a point, keep a clean sheet. Obviously we got done over by Dortmund home and away. But that was the naivety. That was when, you know, we started to kind of struggle, and I think obviously injuries started kicking in, and we've seen it, you know, in the Premier League. We've started to be undone, and we struggled. But on our day, we can compete with anyone. We can compete with anyone, and the more that time goes on, and the more that we gradually improve this squad, and no disrespect, the more that we gradually manage to phase out players like Javier Manquillo, you know, your Paul Dummett, your Matt Ritchies, etc., which we will talk about on squad games, and we replace those with Premier League ready players, you'll see that the team will improve and the performances will improve, and gradually we'll go higher and higher up the league table.
Yeah, agreed.
Lads, I just want to make a quick point because I'm going to forget about Leonardo now. But yes, when you I'm throwing my cards behind another player. We talked about him in the show we did, Pete, in November. I know he's on your list of topics to talk about here. But yeah, he is going to be available for 50 million euro in the summer, I think. So and it's this man, Benjamin Sesko. Yes, I would love to see him coming in. Look, we were linked to him when he did move to the Red Bull franchise. Let's say he's not getting a game. We had Graham Bailey on as well. He talked about that he might be able to get him on loan. I say, why not try? Especially if Wilson was to go, get him in on loan with the option to bring him in. Then pay the 50 million. Euro or try and negotiate it, but I imagine there'll be a lot of clubs that will, especially if he was to do well with us, would want to snap him up then. So he would be one I would love to see coming to Newcastle. And him being young, he could like share the load with Isak, and like Isak can play every man of every game, and he doesn't have to start every game as well. You wouldn't mind him starting a few games as well either. So bring it on. Tall lad, scores goals, young, great age.
You know it. 20 years old. You're absolutely right. He's 43 million release clause apparently in his contract, which will become valid in the summer. He's gone to Leipzig after. If everyone's watched this channel for as long as we've been going, you will know that we talked about in the Follow the Transfer shows before we went to Leipzig that actually Newcastle United were in talks with him potentially, and his agent was on Tyneside. And we had those pictures from Instagram where he was on Tyneside having those talks. But obviously, with the Red Bull branch being so close together, that move was quite kind of seamless, should we say, in terms of going from Salzburg to Leipzig, and that deal was done. But Lois Openda, who I had a conversation with Lee today, and he was like, I told you about Lewis Openda, told you. And he's tearing it up at Leipzig, and he's being brilliant. And actually, them getting Openda in has kept Sesko out the team. Like, you can't get him, like as I said, quite rightly. And so, do you take a 6'3", 20-year-old striker that knows where the net is at Newcastle United for a replacement as Callum Wilson? Because let's be honest, boys, like, you don't get a replica of Alexander Isak as a replacement for Alexander Isak. If you're going to get a second striker, you're getting a second striker that gives you something different. And Benjamin Sesko does give you something completely different as a striker, as does Callum Wilson, as does some of the other players that we talked about. You know, Seru Garassi gives you something different. He's not an Alexander Isak player. And so you do need that alternative. And certainly Benjamin Sesko could be that guy. But yeah, I tell you what, the summer's going to be an absolute
it is
madness. If we think these last 24, 40 hours is madness, you wait until we hit end of the season. It's going to be fever pitch at Loading Mag, NUFC, fully loaded transfer, because we are going to go absolutely mad. That is for sure. But look, boys, we could go on all day. I could throw other players at you, or other situations at you, but I know there's a few questions in the chat that we maybe want to get to before we wrap up. So what have we got?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me, because on
Yeah,
one screen I'm moving, and another screen I'm not, so I don't know what's happening. It's very strange. They're meant to mirror each other. Well, let's work from my laptop. Just okay, right. First up for the questions. Right, let's answer one, because we've kind of we've taken the question on Trips and Wilson, but how much would you value Miggy?
Okay. I'll give a Saudi price and a European price. So I think in Saudi Arabia, I think in Saudi Arabia we could get up to 25 million for Miggy Almiron. I think in Europe, tell you what, up to 20 million in Europe and up to 30 million in Saudi. That's what I'd say. I think
value in dollars for the US. It's in the back to Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I don't think he'd go back to Atlanta or back to the US even. I think he'd go to Saudi Arabia, or I think he would go. I could see him in La Liga. I don't know why. I think he'd suit La Liga as well. I could see him going to, a bit like Manquillo off to the Celta Vigo, like a decent La Liga club. I could see him joining, and I think he would join a decent La Liga club for 15 to 20 million, and Saudi Arabia would be 25 to 30 million. They'll stick with that.
In Europe, 20 to 25 million. I think we could get for him. In Saudi, I've said this for a while, anywhere between 30 and 35 million we would get for him. If you can get 30 plus million for Benjamin Mendy at Chelsea, there is no reason why Miguel Almiron can't get the same fee. There are some absolute scandalous deals that other clubs have got for their players at Saudi. So for me, if you can get that amount of money for someone like Benjamin Mendy, who isn't a great goalkeeper, you can get 30 million for Miguel Almiron. So for me, I'd be looking at pushing that boundary. And for the season he had last season, is good. He got double figures last season. I think he's on 4 or 5 goals already this season. There's no reason why he can't get to double figures this season. If he does, 30 million at least.
Foxy says 100 million for the smile. Why not? I actually think Miggy's the next one that we're going to start hearing about. Someone looking or making a bid, considering making a bid. Right. Let's go to Carlisle Tuna, who donated to the channel earlier. But hey, lads, great show. Question with Joe Linton out for the season and trips possibly on the way out. If we don't sign anyone either, where do you think we'll finish? And are you going to question the club's strategy then?
Go on, Pete. You go, mate.
I'm just catching up with the question. I was just looking at Bobby. He's correcting me. I said Benjamin Mendy, who he actually plays for Man City or used to. Yeah, obviously he's trying with his other stuff going on. It was actually Edward Mendy, so I apologise for that. You're absolutely right. Question with Joe Linton out for the season, Trippier possibly on the way out. If we don't sign anyone either, where do you think we'll finish? If we keep Trippier and Wilson, Joe Linton out, honestly, I think we can still finish in the top 7. I really do. I think the fixtures are good for us. I think the key is we've just got to keep players fit. If we keep everyone fit, if we get Barnes back for the second half of the season, if we get Willett back for the second half of the season, no injuries interrupted, we add Elliot Anderson back at the end of February. If we get those players back and Callum Wilson stays fit for the rest of the season, I think we can get top 7. I genuinely feel that, because I think our squad is stronger than a lot of other strong squads in the Premier League. I think our squad is probably top 5 in terms of quality available, even with Joe Linton and Tonali not available.
Chris?
So Joe Linton's out, Trippier leaves, and we don't sign anyone. Yeah, I agree with Pete. I think top 7. I think top 7 is still achievable. I would like top 6 because I'd like to have a go at the Europa League. I'm not going to lie. I think the Europa League would be a good competition to get in. Obviously, if you win the Europa League, that then puts you in the Champions League, which is why I would like the Europa League. So I'd hope top 6, and I think it's achievable. I think it's doable. Obviously, we've got to be lucky with injuries, and we've got to really turn around the form. But it's definitely doable. In terms of the last part of the question from Carlisle Tuna, am I questioning the club strategy? Not whatsoever. Not whatsoever. I have full backing of this ownership, and I believe in what the owners are doing. Even if we don't sign anyone this January, I would be disappointed, as I said earlier, but I still wouldn't question them, because we've hired some of the best people in the business to do the job that is needed to be done. And let's not forget, boys, we're turning a really big ship here, because we've had years of neglect under Mike Ashley and we're really struggling for it now. But that's not to say that these owners aren't trying to improve things. And I think if we keep our powder dry and we don't sign anyone that this current window, as deeply disappointing as that would be, I would always think in the back of my mind, yeah, but they must be waiting for someone. They must be waiting for that one big player or 2 or 3 or 4 big players that they really want to get. And what I don't want to do is for us to just sign people willy-nilly and then think, oh, why did we sign him? And then they were like, oh, we had no choice. I would rather us really be careful, calculated, and go and get the players that we really want, because the players that we really want, who we've gone out and got so far, the likes of Isak, your Botman, your Bruno, your Livramento, I've been happy with all of them. So I trust this ownership, and I think they'll get it right.
Speaking of someone we really want and a big player, Chris, you might have heard this one from Craig Hope. Craig Hope reporting that Neville Southall has just landed at Newcastle Airport, ready for talks to commence. Chris will be buzzing. No one will get that if you haven't seen the show.
He covers most of the goal. That's all I'll say.
Right, moving on.
What he does is grobble a shuffle, wobbly legs.
Other news, Derek was Ekiteke is off to Germany, Frankfurt, isn't it? Yeah,
we said it in our last show. We said it in the last show was when we talked about Ekiteke. He's close to agreeing a deal with Eintracht Frankfurt.
Okay.
I know they were really keen on him, so it could well be that he's heading that way.
Question from Mike Gent here, lads. And I know it's come up in a previous chat as well. Would you take Greenwood? It's a no from me.
No.
Greenwood's not coming back to England.
No.
He won't play back in England for the rest of his career, I don't think, unless Man United take him back, which I think would send the media into absolute meltdown. I think he spends the rest of his career outside of this country, personally.
Yeah.
Right, there's one or two comments here, and it probably was one of your on the list, Pete. I think. Have you heard anything about a player from Standard Ria's player Desiree Doué?
Yeah, Chris, I think you put it in the chat last night, but we have talked about him before last season. I think Lee had mentioned about him. And Desiree Doué, 18 years old at Rennes, come through is a bit of a starlet and is absolutely smashing it in midfield. Toon Gaming said we need to get him. And look, he's going to get picked up by a top team at some point, whether it's us or somebody else. He will get picked up because he is a very, very talented boy at 17, 18 years old. He was 17 when he broke through at that club. And the fact that we're interested in him is a great sign in itself, in my opinion. But the worry is, for me, is that in that link, that Borussia Dortmund are linked with him as well, because they've got previous with signing top young talent and making them into players. So that's me. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, really, because it's great that we're in with him and we're looking in the right direction because he's a talented player. But when you're coming up against someone like Borussia Dortmund, it is a really, really difficult situation to turn heads. In most places, or in most cases, the way in which you turn heads is if you go and offer more money. But I don't think we're in a position to do that for an 18-year-old, in my opinion. So I don't know.
No, I agree. I think he looks a prospect. I think as soon as you come up against Dortmund, you're going to struggle. I mean, we've seen the power that Dortmund have got with these younger players because I think the agents really pushed them. Erling Haaland joined Dortmund, didn't he, before he went to Man City for that very reason, because it was a good move for his career. So I think it would be difficult if we come up against Dortmund to try and get him. But the fact that we're interested in these players is a good sign because it shows that the scouting team are doing the job. Obviously, I'd welcome him at Newcastle, but you could also argue as well: is he a player that we really need right now for where we are? We keep talking, don't we, boys, about needing players that are ready to hit the ground running, ready to make an immediate impact. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't want them, but maybe we should be looking for players who are a bit more, a bit more further on in their careers. But hey, if we signed them, I'd be happy.
Cool. Sully says, I've watched a few podcasts the last few days when all these rumors around. I haven't heard anything about getting in a goalkeeper. Are we happy to stick with Dubravka? No, we did talk about it on the show the 2 nights ago, and we talked about De Gea, and we talked about Mamashvili, someone maybe in the summer, and I know Diogo Costa as well, someone that has been talked about in the past. But for me at that time, I was saying I think we're going to stick with Dubravka for the rest of the season, and whenever Pope comes back then as well. But and Anthony, you want to add on that one, lads?
I think there's more priority positions at the moment. If you rewind 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were all saying we desperately needed a new number one. Yeah. I still think we do need a number one, but equally now I'm looking and I'm thinking, well, we need a central midfielder. We need another striker because we can't keep Callum Wilson fit. We need another right winger because Miguel Almiron, we can't rely on him to play week in, week out because I don't think he's. I think he needs some competition, is what I'm saying. Do we need a number one? Yes. Can we survive until the end of the season? Probably. Dubravka has been playing well of late, and he has surprised me. I'm not going to lie, but in that summer, I still want that number one. I still think we should bring in a goalkeeper to challenge Nick Pope. I really, really do.
Yeah, I don't see a goalkeeper coming in at all. which is really weird because like a couple of weeks before the window, we were adamant that a goalkeeper was coming in.
Yeah.
We did a whole show on effectively a goalkeeper coming in, but yeah, I do think Dubravka's recent performances have kind of changed tact with that. And fair play to Dubravka. I still, like I said, I'm with Chris. I maintain it. I still don't particularly rate Dubravka long term. I don't think he's got a future at Newcastle, but he's putting in performances, and fair play to him. Long may that continue, because if we don't get a goalkeeper in January, we're going to need him to do that for at least another 2, maybe 3 months until Pope is back fit. So we're going to need him massively to put in the same type of performances. We need to stop conceding goals. We've already conceded more goals this season than we did in the whole of last season. We need to put a plug in that. We need to stop conceding goals. We've got the defense back solid. We need the goalkeeper to keep doing the same. And I think if we do that, we start climbing the league very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to come to you with this question because it's something that you brought up come back a couple of weeks ago. But question comes from Ashley. If we lose Trippier, Wilson, and Lascelles and don't replace, is that Eddie out in the summer?
Do you know what? It's a fantastic question, Matt. It's a fantastic question, and I can't move the goalposts from where I said. I said this at the start of the window that I still maintain I would have severe worries if the owners don't back Eddie Howe at all this window. And I'm not saying that Eddie Howe's a dead man walking by any stretch, but I think it puts him under a lot of pressure, is what I'd say, because if the owners are saving it for the summer, that's fine. And, that could be the case. The owners could be saving it for the summer, and they could be, saying to Eddie Howe, right, let's go and get these targets that we've panned out. But my big question is, there's a huge opportunity there. And Pete spoke about it before. There's a huge opportunity. We're 6 points behind 6 as it stands. There's a huge opportunity for us to make a success out of this season. So why would you not take the action now to ensure that we do have a positive end to the season? Why would you risk it all to wait for the summer? That would be my caveat, because right now Eddie Howe needs help, and if the owners don't give him help, it leaves me wondering why aren't they helping him? Is it because they're saving the money for the summer and they're going to give it to somebody in place of Eddie Howe? I'm not saying Eddie Howe's going to get sacked, and I'm not saying that I want Eddie Howe to get sacked, actually, but it does make me wonder why, if we get to the 1st of February and we haven't signed anyone, it would make me wonder why that is, because when you bring in a new manager, you want to give them a war chest. And if a new manager came in the summer, they will have one hell of a war chest. Yeah, they will have one hell of a war chest if we don't sign anyone this January, because we'll have a hell of a lot of money. And maybe they're going to give it to Eddie Howe. Maybe they're going to give it to Eddie Howe. And if we finish this season in the top 6, Eddie Howe's going to keep his job. If we end up finishing this season 12th, everyone's going to be questioning the ownership, and I think some people will question Eddie Howe, even though there's a very good reason as to why we would finish 12th. But it's natural. People base emotions on results, and if you don't get results in this game, we all know it. It's difficult, especially for managers. It's very, very difficult. But if the owners don't back Eddie and give him the players that he needs, I would be concerned for Eddie Howe. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd say on that.
Anything else to add there, Pete? Or we move to the next question?
Honestly, with the way this season's gone, I think we're going to see the backing of Eddie Howe in the summer. I think they will stick with Eddie Howe. I think they, in my opinion, regardless whether we get Europe or not, I think they will understand. And this wasn't my initial thought maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I've kind of changed recently because of a lot of what's gone on. I think with the injuries and all the rest of it, I think they're going to give him an opportunity to see what he's about with a fully fit squad. And I think they're going to give him the summer budget to go and get what he wants to get.
Can I ask you a question, Pete?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, mate. Can I ask you a question? Yeah. If we saw it with Liverpool years ago when Jurgen Klopp became available, if a top manager becomes available, not naming any names, Daz, if a top manager becomes available in the summer, do the club push the button because that top manager is available, or that top manager is interested in Newcastle, in your opinion? Or do you think they risk losing that manager because they maybe give Eddie Howe till September, October, things don't quite pan out how they wanted, and then they then have to make that horrible decision, which they probably don't want to make, but then potentially risk losing that manager if they've got a manager lined up? I don't know if they have, but I'm just talking hypothetically.
If we were a Chelsea, then maybe. I think the Newcastle board are trying to operate differently to Chelsea and a team like that are just very reactive to who's available at this point in time. You look at Chelsea and they've gone through pretty much every top manager that you can think of. Some have been successful, some haven't. But the difference is they've been able to throw money at whatever managers come in and said, you can have what you want, sign who you want, win us the trophies over a 3-year span. We have to remember that we can't be Chelsea. We can't be Man City. This season and this predicament that we're in, which is why we're doing the show that we are right now, is proof that we cannot be a Man City or a Chelsea and do it over a short period of time. This is going to be a long process. To get to where we want to get to, this is going to be a long process. And we're going to have to be patient with it. And being patient is sometimes having seasons where we're not always fighting for the top 4, like this season, and assessing the situation that we are, because we can't go and throw money at it. And I think the injury situation has compounded everything. That this has been the worst injury campaign that we've had, I think someone said, since Glenn Roeder at Newcastle United in 2007, 2008, I think it might have been. And he still manages to get us in European football. So if he achieves that Glenn Roeder did, and Glenn Roeder was a brilliant manager for doing the impossible that season, then he has my backing, 110%. If he ends up finishing 4th, 15th in the table, that's a different conversation, but I don't believe he will. I think he will be given enough grace because of what he's done before to be given the war chest in the summer to go, you know what, you want to take us to the next stage. Here's your war chest. And let's not forget, we've got Adidas money. We've got Champions League money. We'll have players being sold. We'll have players going out of contract. We are going to have a significant amount of money to start our new 3-year rolling of, the sustainability rules, profit and sustainability, whatever it's called now, FFP. So we are going to be in a really strong position come the summer. And I think they're going to give it to Eddie Howe. Now, if we're sitting here in October, November, and we're mid-table, and we're not having a great season with the money invested into the squad, I think we're sitting here talking about a new manager coming in my honest opinion. But I don't believe that Eddie Howe, if he finishes 8th, even 9th in this season, gets the boot. That's just my opinion right now of what I see things. I think he's going to get given at least another season. And I think the injuries like Joe Linton just compounds everything. We've had a horrible season for injuries, but I think he's going to be given an opportunity to buy players and get players back fit. We haven't seen the best of Tonali. We haven't seen the best of Barnes. Let's see them in action on a regular basis with new signings, with players back fit, and then we assess Eddie Howe on his position and we move forward. And going into the Europa League or the Europa Conference League wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Honestly, we go into the Europa Conference League, I think we win our first major trophy. And nobody's going to complain at that. Everyone will hold Eddie Howe in the highest regard. And I think we break our duct. Just like LB said to us on away days, we need to win a trophy, a major trophy.
Yeah, we do.
We go and win a major European trophy, it ain't the worst thing in the world. Because I tell you what, I think Villa go and win their major European trophy this season in winning the Europa Conference League. And I think with our team that we assemble, if we got Europa Conference, if we finish 7th, we go into Europa Conference, I think we win the lot. I think we win the absolute lot with Eddie Howe. And I think we're having a different conversation there.
Yeah,
Chris, I'm questioning your loyalty. I'm just going to call it straight out. I'm questioning your loyalty. I don't think you really want to be in a part of Stay Howe as we continue forward on this journey. But you're any chance you get, you're ready to pounce on Eddie. But no, I'm only messing.
No,
Right,
you know what?
let's move on to the next one.
I think it's just it for me. It's that I love Eddie, but Eddie needs backing. Eddie needs help. And like this season, it's not been his fault. He's had a lack of players, and he's really struggled, and he's not been able to field his full 11. He's not even been able to field a full 18 and be able to bring players off the bench. It's just not been possible for him. And I feel like he's being hung out to dry. If we don't sign anybody this window, it leaves me thinking, what is the plan? Like what is, yes, we'll be looking forward to a big summer. Don't get me wrong, I know that, and I think this summer will be a huge summer for Newcastle. But even just a couple of loans. But you know what? As soon as that first person comes through the door, that'll put those worries to one side. And like Pete, I always believed, and I've been saying this to all my mates, in my WhatsApp chats I've been having with them, that they're convinced Eddie Howe gets sacked this season, and I've said no, Eddie Howe's not getting sacked this season. It's not happening. For me, he gets the start of next season. But if the owners don't give him anything this window, that's what's making me wobble. Because I'm thinking, does that mean at the end of the season they're going to shake his hand and go, "Thanks for everything, Eddie. We've got this guy now." That's my only thing. But if we sign a couple of players, those concerns are put to the back of my mind. Like, we're obviously going to stick with Eddie, in my opinion.
Okay, last one or two questions before we wrap up for the night. Right, I'm going to link two comments together here. First one from Lee G, because he put it in at 10:30 this morning, so surprised it's still in the system. Right, lads, my question is this: as things currently stand, is this window the worst window we've had since we sold Cabaye in terms of morale, etc.? And I want to link it with this one from Michael Palmer. Would you happily write this season off by selling the likes of Trips, Wilsons, anyone else over 30 for a huge summer where we bring in 4 or 5 Tonali-like deals?
Go on, Pete. You go.
I would personally. I look at if it meant, if I know we're going to go big in the summer anyway, but if it means we got 1 or 2 more, then. But then we probably wouldn't have, less likely to have the European factor to entice people.
Boys, you only have to look at the situation with Tottenham Hotspur, with Spurs. Tottenham Hotspur looked like they were finished. Harry Kane leaving, out of Europe, finished. What they did, they got a manager in, they got players in, they could play a system. And now in my opinion, they'll get Champions League football. For us, we've already got a better squad than them. We add 4 or 5 of Tonali-like players that Michael Palmer said, we're in a position and we're only playing once a week if we finish out of Europe. Like, we're competing for Champions League football, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it. We are right in that conversation. And for the reasons why we didn't finish in those positions this season, is because all those others have got to play 2-3 games a week, and we haven't. And we will benefit from that. Now, provided we keep those players fit and firing, we will smash it. And not only smash it, I can see us going far in both the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup on the back of that too.
Yeah, I think to go back to the first question, for me, it's like, I don't even think morale's low at the moment. I've just said then I'd be baffled if we didn't bring anybody in, but I'm not looking at it like the Cabaye season when we sold Cabaye, because I knew Mike Ashley was just getting that money and slotting it in his back pocket. I know that that's not going to happen this time. So even if we sold, Trippier, Lascelles, Wilson, I'd just be mega excited for August. I'd just be mega excited for next season. So I would completely get if we did that. But I'm not worried in any way. I think I've been baffled by the way some fans have been reacting over the losing, the likes of Wilson and Trippier. We're not talking about 26-year-olds with 4, 5, 6 years ahead of them. We're talking about players who are coming to the end of their career, who've been really good servants to the club. But if you can get money, you get the money. Sometimes that's what you've got to do. You've got to lose players that you don't want to lose. Loads of people love Miggy Almiron. I love Miggy Almiron. But if someone's putting serious money down for Miggy Almiron, I'm taking it. Same with Jacob Murphy. I'm taking it. And you've got to be ruthless. Pete talked about being ruthless before. You've got to be ruthless. And we're in this predicament. We'd like to keep all our players because we love them all, but we can't do that under FFP. So for me, I think we've got to be ruthless. If it means that we lose 3 or 4 players and we only bring in 1 or 2, so be it. But it's all with the aim of improving for next season. And this club wants to get as high as it possibly can. And under this ownership, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And we'll get there however way possible. And if it means losing players, if it means that we're, selling players to sacrifice the rest of this season, if a good deal gets put up in front of you, you've got to do it. Strike now, because we could end up losing half that money at the end of the season or get no money at all. That's why we were talking before about Jamal Lascelles. If we get a monetary offer for Jamal Lascelles, I think we take it. I really, really do. Go and get a loan player in. Go and get a player in who can do a job for 6 months. Go and do that. And just take the money and save it up for the summer if need be. I just want to see the owners back Eddie Howe and give him a couple of players this window. However that may be, whether it's a loan, whether it's a free, just do whatever you need to do. That's why when we were talking about, Jesse Lingard, just go and get a player who can come in on a temporary basis and just fill a gap. That's all I want. I just don't want to leave the squad as it is now, because I think it will be difficult. Yes, when the players are back, brilliant. But as Pete mentioned before, some of these players aren't going to be back till March, April. And by that time, it's done. So,
well, you know what else is done? The questions, because we will be here till this time tomorrow if we were to go through them all. But thanks for everyone for your questions. All great as always, and they're constantly coming in. I haven't even got to get through them because they've been inundated with questions. We've covered, as Pete was saying in our own internal, we've covered so much tonight. Thanks for sticking with us. But we'll give a shout out to the sponsors as well. Maybe give a quick shout out to the sponsors. Shout out to theradiatorshed.com and Russ and his radiators. Go check them out at theradiatorshed.com and you'll see the latest and greatest there. From Russ, I recommend going to the website. You get the best of what is available. Also, shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co. And all the bathrooms and all your bathroom wear that are available through H2O. So go check that out. Go check out their website as well. And new pictures coming there. So I'm not even going to go through the old pictures because the showrooms are all changed and everything like that. So, but go check the lads out and tell them Loaded sent you. That is it, I think. As we round up for the night. Yeah, we'll be back during the week. We have to talk about what we're going to do. But we have a few plans, I think, up our sleeve this week, don't we?
We've had another 10 plus subscribers come to the channel tonight. So thank you for your support as always. Keep sending the message out. Like we always say, tell a friend to tell a friend. Pass is on to other people that want to watch Newcastle United content. We're slowly growing. We're doing it the right way. We've had a lot of positive comments from a lot of people recently about the quality of shows that we put on and the conversations and the discussions that we have. We look at what we see and we put these questions out to you guys, and we involve you as part of our discussion. So we'll continue to do that and evolve in the right way. So come and join us on our rise as we go through. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already.
Nice one. Right, I think all that's left to say is, how'd you like that? Good night, everyone. Watch out for the storm. See you later. Bye-bye.
How you like